Family Design Review Board. Can we have the roll call, please?
Bernstein here. Carroll is absent. Miller.
Here.
Woolery. Here. Zimmerman. Geisler.
Here.
Zink.
Here. Thank you. And Aaron will be late, about 4 o'clock. He's stepping down for the first 2 items. I will open up item A, which is public comment. Anybody from the public wishing to address the board may do so now. Seeing nobody stand up, I will close public comment. Return it back to item B, which is the approval of the minutes for August 16th. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make the motion.
First and second. Are there any discussions about the minutes? I do have some from Aaron when we get to that point. Starting with item 1, item 2, item 2, which is 1131 Los Pueblos Road. That was the Brian Murphy project. Aaron would like us to add one item under item 8, where it talks about the project is consistent with appearance, development, provides quality architecture materials, replaces a redwood tree. He would like to add to that. It is understood that a redwood tree is to be removed and will be replaced with a new tree in the front yard. So I just want people to know that's Aaron's comment. We gave a preliminary approval. The project will get reviewed at final, and I'm just checking. At full board, it'll be at final. So we'll check on the box size, whether it's 24 inches or greater. It'll be a full board final review. Moving on to item 3, item 4, item 5, item 6. So are there any other discussion or comments besides Aaron's? If not, I'll have a call for a vote for the minutes as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Good set of minutes. Moving on to the consent calendar, starting with August 23rd, which was last Monday. Oh, you just... Oh, well, is there a motion first? Bernie is first. This is going to be for the consent calendar agenda minutes. Bernie is first.
Second.
And Glenn is second.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Consent agenda for Monday, August 23rd. Item A, 333 Piedmont Road, was continued indefinitely to the staff hearing officer. That was the only item, and items reviewed by Paul Zink and Denise Forley.
I had an easy one. All right, any other discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to the consent calendar for today, which was August 30th. Do we have a first and a second? First by Denise, second by Mr. Zimmerman? Yes, all right.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Consent agenda for today, Monday, August 30th, 2010. Item A, 306 Sherman Road, was continued indefinitely to the staff hearing officer. Item B, 1944 Gibraltar Road, was granted final approval of architecture and landscaping with conditions. Item C, 1478 Lou Dillon Lane, final approval of architecture and landscaping with conditions. Item D, 2010 Garden Street, continued indefinitely to the staff hearing officer. Item E, 2323 Red Rose Way, final approval with conditions. And item F, 11 Eland Place, final approval as submitted of landscaping. Items reviewed by Paul Zink and Denise Floury.
Great. Any other discussion on that? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I will move on to item D, which is announcements.
Mr. Chair, I do have one announcement. I would just like to note for the board item, it's not on today's agenda, but a project at 1220 Shoreline Drive that will be going to Planning Commission this coming next Thursday, September 2nd, and story poles will be going up prior to that Planning Commission meeting, so they should be up by Monday for the Planning Commission site visit.
September 2nd, isn't that Thursday of this week?
That is, excuse me, yes.
Does the staff need somebody from our board to go to that meeting, or there is no concern?
I have heard no word of the
Okay.
request, so at this point, no.
Who's the case planner on that?
That is Kelly Broadison.
Okay.
I believe the story poles are already up.
Yes, that would make sense.
Okay. Can you ask Kelly if she thinks someone should go, and if so, if they can email me, and we'll find somebody
I
to
will do
represent
that,
it?
yes.
Okay.
And are they going to be doing a site visit or?
Planning Commission, yeah, they do a site visit.
On Tuesday, usually, right? Tuesday morning? Any other announcements?
No, that's it.
I have a mild announcement. 2 weeks ago, Medcliff was at the Planning Commission. It was the subdivision lot split, and Bernie asked me to sort of inform the board of what was decided. The Planning Commission approved the project. This is the one that had a sidewalk in front and basically took 2 lots and created 4 legal lots, and then one of the lots was so large it had a secondary house on it. And the Planning Commission wanted to see the sidewalk put in there, even though some board members had a concern that our board wanted to keep it more natural and rural. The Planning Commission wanted to see a sidewalk in place. The other concern that was brought up by Stella Larson was perhaps establishing view corridors over the lots so that adjoining properties didn't have view conflicts later in life as the projects were being developed. And that's something we don't think about when we when we see lot splits in front of us, but it was a valid point that I thought we should mention. And so that's all I had to report on that. And the project will be coming back to our board for preliminary approval and landscape design for the sidewalk and the improvements along Medcliff. So with that, item E, which is subcommittee, I don't believe we have any. So we'll move on to the first item of the agenda, which is 226 Eucalyptus Hill Drive. Hello? Before we get started, we want to get the minutes and figure out where we're at. Staff has them.
Okay.
I'm not worried. We just have to wait. You want to introduce your team?
Okay, for the record, my name is Robin Donaldson, architect for the applicant. Greg Griffin from my office is here, and Ann Kale, lighting designer, is here as well.
Wonderful.
Mr. Chair, the comments from the previous meeting. Comments from July 6, 2010 were carried forward with the understanding that no grading will occur on the site prior to final approval of landscaping for both lots. Number 2, the project is compatible with the neighborhood. Massing is relatively low with natural materials, well landscaped, and underground drainage is a huge improvement. Number 3, include the phasing process on the drawings. Number 4, provide additional landscape information for the easement along Woodland Hills. Number 5, provide notes about the temporary irrigation for the oak trees. Number 6, study ways to increase permeable paving whenever possible.
So most of it's site stuff, not too much architecture.
Doesn't sound like it.
It said carry forward the items from the previous meeting. Were there any architectural items on that? Previous?
Okay, it looks like all of the comments were actually repeated in the comments I just read, and they were almost all landscaping and/or phasing issues.
All right.
Okay. Paul, might be best if could I have a list to run through?
Yeah, we'll just let
Glenn,
you
do you
have
mind
that.
if I use that? Thank you. I have to follow this. Maybe they just hit this. The grading comment, obviously, that
You haven't started construction.
we have not started construction. Phasing process on the drawings.
Right here.
Phasing.
Let's just go through it. It says, Phase 1, all structures on such and such address, driveways to the lower lot, all grading and drainage and storm captured infrastructure, sewage drainage connections to Woodland Drive, storm drainage infrastructure improvements at Alston Road, all landscaping for upper lot, all oak tree mitigation, planting, landscaping on lower lot as needed for slope stability and erosion control. Phase 2, all structures on lower lot. Let's go to the overall site plan.
So one of the comments addresses landscape on the areas of grading on the lower lot. Since we're not proposing any structures on the lower lot so far, this was a lot line adjustment. We have some fill in here.
You're just going to grade for the pads. Is there
Basically.
a landscape plan for like the phase 1 status of landscaping?
Derek should actually be on his way.
Oh, so let's hold
Let's
off
come
on
back to
that.
that when Derek shows up.
Okay, and push that oval button for you. There you go. So we'll hold off on that. Temporary irrigation, so paving permeability. Oh,
Are those notes on Derek's drawings? All the materials, the paving materials?
Call-outs are, it's still limited to the upper walkways, on the pathways on the upper lot.
Are all permeable surfaces?
But all this road is going to be hard paved surface, and this is a paved surface.
Right.
Yeah, we have an issue. The grade of this road requires a hard surface
Okay.
in this area here. And then we have an existing driveway to here, and then this section in here is going to basically match what's in the driveway now.
Okay. So let's talk about the architecture of the building and the exterior lighting. And then when the landscape
Okay.
person comes, we'll attack phasing.
Basically, since we're going for final, I would assume we want to look at details. Paul, or you want to go back through
Well, first of all,
as we have it submitted?
any changes in the floor plan or elevations from the previous drawing?
No.
Okay, so let's just go over
No.
some of the details. We had a concern about the gutters and downspouts and
Right.
some of the higher fire stuff.
Right. All the gutters, downspouts have all been detailed and indicated on the drawings.
Sheet A901 will show you a full wall section of those.
Yeah.
Great. Showing the exact configuration of the gutters, downspout, materials.
And was this that not Polynesian, Filipino mahogany or something? What was this material?
That there's the brick.
That's actually a brick.
This is the brick or the stone?
Yeah.
You had wood in some places, right?
Yeah, we do up on the
Which
second
is
floor.
redwood.
Redwood, okay.
A treated redwood for the high fire.
Okay. Sure. Any other surprise?
Door, window detailing.
How about exterior lighting? Let's just jump to that.
Okay.
Okay, I think if you,
That's fine.
yeah, if you go to the lighting plans,
Is it an E sheet or an F?
what did it end up going, L?
I don't remember.
Okay. So, you'll have to excuse me, the only reading glasses are my sunglasses, so.
Do you want to borrow mine?
Gosh, yes, thank you.
Yes, we're all in that stage.
We're all in the same boat. Exactly. Okay, what we have is here, just marking, these aren't even doors, but just to put some lighting from the building. All of the exterior wall-mounted fixtures are just wall-mounted downlights. So there is no visible lamp. There is no brightness coming from the fixture.
Do you have this noted somewhere on the drawings? Do you have an actual sheet that calls out the manufacturer and this?
This says the X2. What you do is you come to the fixture schedule,
Okay.
and you look at the X2, and it calls out the manufacturer. It's a Bega fixture, and it's either it's probably going to be an MR16. It might be an LED.
Okay.
And that's the fixture that you see.
These are the only two that you have throughout the whole house?
No, no, no. We have multiple stories.
No, oh, I mean, but the only type?
No, they're basically, and there's an EX3, which is, I'm sorry, the EX3 is what we were looking at before. They're basically all the same. And then underneath the eaves, where we have a covered eave, you'll have a downlight version of the fixture.
Okay.
And then you'll see a few step lights around. And this fixture is also fully concealed step light.
Okay. Cool.
One thing that you'll see here where we have the wall, we are proposing that we graze that wall, as you come in. And it will be an in-ground grazing light. The fixture that we selected is one that is partially hooded. And between the hood and the light being aimed at the walls, we can show you that 100% of the light is going towards the wall and not any light will be going directly into the sky. And this is the type of fixture that we used at to light the main gate for UCSB. Oh, I'm sorry. We're talking about the in-ground uplight. We want to graze the main wall as you approach the building. And the fixture cut shows a burial uplight, and half the fixture is hooded, which captures most of the light that would normally go up into the dark sky. The fixture is adjustable so that we can aim the light towards the wall. And this is the type of fixture that we used at the main entrance to UCSB, where not only were we not allowed to have any uplight for dark sky considerations, we weren't allowed to have any uplight for the airport requirements.
Okay. Pass this around if somebody's interested. Anything else we should be concerned with the lighting? Since we looked at the lights. Okay. Architecture? Anything you want to go over? If not, we'll jump straight to
I don't
landscape.
think so. We have all the details. Let's do the landscape. Thanks, Sam.
I was only able to get one set in time.
And we were 3 minutes early.
And I was 4 minutes late. All right, this set is broken up into 3 sheets. So this is the upper portion of the planting, the middle section, which has the guest house, and then the lower part of the slope, which is famous for the eucalyptus grove, and this is where our mitigation oak trees are going.
Does this plan reflect the landscaping during phase 1, which is just the rough grading for these paths?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll go through the planting, but this is the irrigation that shows all that. This,
There's also an interest in a note about temporary irrigation for the oak trees.
right, I have that on the irrigation plan. This last valve, because we weren't able to carry it all the way down, but you do see the mitigation trees. We're calling this out as a dedicated drip valve for the mitigation oak trees. And then that's detailed within the set. And the planting is as it was last time. We're going to use a Magnolia stellata out here. We're hoping to reuse the Pyrus Kawakami, put it in a box, and then relocate it back here at the entry. All of the oak grove obviously maintains per the oak tree provisions, and this is all planted in natives. This is an Asian-inspired courtyard, and we're running bamboo against this wall, and then that bamboo continues out to here. We have a Laurus nobilis hedge along the edge, just kind of a typical garden. You can check the materials if you want. This is agapanthus in here, some carex, you see buffalo grass planting in here. Then as we go down the slope, this area, and going down the slope this way, very water-conserving agaves, ceanothus, all stuff in keeping with that kind of bank planting. This is our only turf area, Denise. We have Ficus repens on these lower concrete walls to soften those edges. More natives on this side underneath this oak cluster. We do have some large screening material between these two units. Again, I think we've got some let's say DV. I can't remember. So I think it's more Loris. Plant materials 8 to 10 feet in height. We continued our green roof on top of the garage structure here. It's being planted by the Florisource. We're going to be getting the sedum kind of mixed trays there. We're also proposing that there be some Carissa boxwood in fiberglass planters along the edge as a barrier. And then this symbol here is all hydroseed. It's a hydroseed mix on the lower slope wherever there's any kind of grading.
That's also jute.
Correct.
Okay. Can we see the next sheet too, just to see the extent of the hydroseeding? So there's no grading happening in this area?
No, I believe that this is the limits of the grading that I know of.
Okay. And then the number of these are the new trees that are being added?
These are the new trees here. These are existing eucalyptus trees, the ones with the dash symbol
So
on
these
them.
are all the new ones?
Correct.
And what are they?
Quercus agrifolius.
Okay.
They're the mitigated oaks?
And then you can see the irrigation plan. The entire site, mostly drip on these lower slopes, sprays closer to the house. And
So the hydroseeded area gets sprays?
yes.
Yeah.
And then we have we submitted this as a preliminary in the, for preliminary approval, but this is our tree protection and mitigation document.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. All of these trees with letters next to them, A through V, are our existing oak trees. We also have some other species on the site which are not oak trees, and the ones in green are identified to be removed or relocated. The only oak tree that's being removed is this tree right here in the middle of the guest unit. And then we are, if you go back and review the oak tree report from 2006, because these oak canopies do encroach on the residents, even though they're not being removed, they still have to be mitigated for 10 for 1, something like that, I think. So that's the 70 trees that we need to put around the site.
What did you say? The 70 trees what?
For every tree identified in the oak tree report as needing mitigation, we have to put 10 one-gallon trees. So we're mitigating for 7 encroached upon trees.
But we're not losing the trees. It's just we're mitigating. So
We're only losing 1.
Cool.
Okay, that's good.
Last question on there. We talked about getting additional information about the landscaping for that easement area.
Correct. That sheet should be run in here any second.
All
It's
right.
exactly what you saw last time, except for I have irrigation notes on it now.
All right, we'll get to that later. Anything else for your presentation?
No. Thank you.
Park.
I went down to the wire on this one. I apologize. If you recall, we were proposing, this is some work that's going to be done to connect the storm drain or sewer.
Sewer and stormwater, yep.
So this area, there's just dirt now, so we're proposing that be diamondia planted in the flats. Then there's some melasma in this area, which may be impacted, we're not sure, but we'd be replacing it for 5-gallon, 5 feet on center. And then the rest would be the pittosporum. And then what we've added a note, irrigation about connecting to the existing system that's on the site.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
So with that, I will open up public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this project? Staff, are there any letters?
We do have one letter from Ms. Paula Westbury in opposition.
Okay. Does the staff planner have anything to say?
No, I don't have any comments. I'm just here for questions.
So I'll return to the board for questions of the applicant. Does the board have any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Brittany.
Yeah, I just want to know, I guess this is for you, on this nesting of native birds, and I guess it's a boilerplate, it's on page 10. Denise says that she's seen it before. I'm just wondering, how does this actually get, how is this going to be who's accountable for this?
How about we ask staff, because that's a planning commission requirement that staff reviewed.
It has to do with construction activities, including tree and vegetation removal outside of the breeding bird season, etc.
From my personal knowledge, there's a certain window that you can't remove trees in, but you can remove trees outside of that window, kind of like what we...
Yeah, it's past the date.
All right, so then that's
going to be
it's upon...
controlled by the Planning Commission?
This is reviewed by staff, and when the building permit's issued, depending on the time of year, if it is during that period of time, the applicant's required to hire a biologist to go out and look and see if there are any nests in those trees and come back with the report that we review, the planning division reviews.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question or two. The landscape, is there any additional landscape lighting other than the ones that were on the lighting plan?
Good question. I meant to point that out. The only lighting we're showing is path lighting. There's no uplighting, and it's identified. I do take it back. We're also showing these wall lights along this. It's a
It's like a step light.
Exactly. It's the same fixture that Ann has on her step lights right here. But all these little symbols here are all path lights. It's the Aurora light. It's about yay tall and about with a hood about 6 inches. Yeah.
Second question, do you have any drawings of the gates and the entry piers?
No.
We don't.
No, we don't.
Is that
Has staff reviewed the positions of the gates for traffic?
I believe they're located away from, if I recall looking at it this morning, they're set back quite a ways from the road.
So there's
I'm
enough
not
for the
sure.
20-foot staging of a car, so it's not in the drive lane, so the person can wait while the gate opens?
I'm not sure that transportation planning has looked at that, actually. I'm not sure that that was part of the previous approval. That may be a new element.
Okay.
So we need to look at that, and we haven't seen the details of it.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions?
Yeah, I had some questions on the downspouts.
And your mic? You want the elevation or the section?
The elevations. See, downspouts aren't shown, right? Or are they?
They're really not
Okay.
good.
Yeah, they're
So
shown.
you're taking them into the leader?
Yeah.
Oh, good, okay.
Yeah, typically wherever they're coming out of the wall, they're going to a leader head and dropping.
Okay. Good.
I had one question for the staff planner, and that had to do with the phasing, just to make sure that having this permit and this phasing process that was on the cover sheet, would that be sufficient for really just what we're looking for and what they're looking for, that they're basically going to do the landscaping for the lower part just enough to stabilize the grading, and there's going to be no construction activity for that lower portion, lot 2?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we understand the phasing, and I've read through that, and that meets what we've determined to be the appropriate phasing, yes.
Okay, great. So let's move on to comments if there's no other questions. Comments from the board members? Bernie?
Did we talk about the easement?
Yes, we did.
Okay, and did we talk about the permeable paving too?
We actually missed that because you weren't here, I think. There's going to be no change to the permeable paving. The only permeable paving we have is these walkways.
We actually have, this is all gravel in here, and we've changed this to be decking material. So technically that it would be permeable, as is this area right here.
Okay. But these roadways are all basically asphalt or concrete or some hard surface from here and here.
Correct.
Right.
We just reiterated it. Other comments from the board?
Mr. Chair. The lighting issue, I think we should get the schedule copied onto the plan so that they go together. Obviously, the comment of the entry gates needs to be defined as to what they look like, how tall they are they in the right position? Those are my two comments.
I guess I had one comment. It was just more about the uplights for the wall, thinking how you are able to have a uniform lighting all the way across the top versus maybe you want it to be tapering off and you're okay with the design. But I was just wondering how effective it was going to be. Would it be too bright at the bottom? Is the idea for it to wash away as it gets higher to the top?
Yeah, it is. It's a really nice effect to have it right at the bottom, especially if there's a few plants, you silhouette them against the low ground. And you don't want to have even illumination all across the wall because it looks like a billboard.
Okay. Good. I'm not familiar with that wall lighting, so I'll just trust you on that.
It's very nice.
Good. That was my only thought.
Here are some. Here's some sample. If you guys want to look at this.
There's no changes from the last time when we gave a preliminary? On
No
the
changes.
Color materials?
And we have the actual samples here again today if you want to see
Cool. I don't think we need to see them. So with that, is there any more discussion? Are we ready for a motion? And this motion would be for final on the architecture and landscaping, but we probably should hold off or put a disclaimer about the entry gates on the motion. And is this in the high fire area?
Yes, it is.
So we need to put that little disclaimer in there as well.
I have to go to the animals.
Correct. So is someone prepared to make a motion?
I make a motion.
Mr. Miller.
I make a motion that we approve the drawings as shown. I think they've covered all the issues that we originally asked for, other than the front gate. As regarding the front gate, do they come back to the full board, or is that just...
We could say the gate could go to consent.
Okay, so that the gate design and verifying its setback goes to consent. Okay.
So is there a second for this motion?
And does someone second that motion?
I'll second that motion with, if I may add one more thing, that the landscape plan get approval from Ann Marks, and fire zoning is placed on the plan.
Okay. Is that all right with the maker of the motion?
That is fine.
Okay, and then it would be also all right if we had a comment that the fixture cut sheets or in description be added
Yes.
to the lighting plan. And really what it is, it's this image and the description. Are there any other discussions about the project?
Mr. Chair, we're making a final...
Final on
and then it still has to go back to consent for review after final? Or
It would be a final for the house and for the
so we'll
landscaping.
just exclude those other items?
Yeah, and the gates would have to come back to consent review, provided transportation reviews it and such. Does everyone understand the motion? This is final for architecture and landscaping, provided that Ann Marks is satisfied. The gate will be coming back as a separate review at consent.
Mr. Chair, under description, I'm still concerned about the lighting issue and what it's going to look like in the evening. It seems to be aggressively lit up.
Actually, if you study the fixtures, I can pass this on. Does anyone...
We can talk about that if anybody else is comfortable. it's going to impact the neighborhood and have any glaring lights, then, okay.
I would say, based upon the light fixtures, there won't be any negative effect. The only concern I had was about the lighting of the wall, and her point was well taken that if it was uniformly lit boldly, it looked like a billboard. And there is a lot of setback involved, so I'm not too worried about the way the wall is lit. No, I was thinking about that. Does other board members have comments about the exterior lighting from what we can see?
My feeling is it's pretty innocuous. I don't
Okay.
think it's going to impact.
It's all shielded. There'll be no
Yeah.
exposed bulbs. Okay. So with that, I'll call for a vote if there's no other discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah, get the other one. We need to keep that one because that has the landscaping drawings in it. We're on to item 2. We are right on schedule. This is 507 Bronson Way. This project is for final review.
How are you?
You okay?
Hi. Good to see you.
We start with your name for the record, and then we'll read the minutes. Introduce your team.
You want to start and I'll go next?
Derek Eichelberger, Arcadia Studio.
Derek Eichelberger, Arcadia Studio. Gil Berry, architect.
Mike Furzander, the owner.
Mary Fusander, the owner.
Perfect. Right, we have the minutes from the previous meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number 1, the architecture is appropriate for the neighborhood. Building materials will be high quality. The house color will be off-white with a tile roof. Number 2, provide a color and materials board. Number 3, provide information about exterior light fixtures. Number 4, provide an elevation of the front retaining wall and study stone cap, pilaster, or scalloping the wall.
All right, Mr. Barry, you're up.
Thank you. Since the preliminary design, we haven't changed anything. The house is essentially the same. Same site plan, same floor plan, same exterior elevations. And the only thing that I did was provide this elevation of the wall that I didn't have previously. So I drew it showing the entire site because it's a fairly large site, so it had to be the small scale to show it. So it shows the house and the wall at the same scale. And we did not have a cap before, and you asked to put a cap, so now there's a cap.
And it's actually a precast stone.
Yeah, we have that all over the house around columns and balustrades and things.
Okay.
So all the materials are the same, plate height's the same, doors and windows the same, everything's the same.
Do you want to go over the color board since it's in front of us?
Yes. We were going to have a tile roof that's a blend of 3, and of course this is just one of the 3. There's one that has a little more flashing on it to give some variety. Copper gutters, integral Hubbard color on the stucco, and the windows and doors are all eagle, all wood windows, metal clad, with this moss green color. The same color as the Canary Hotel, if anyone remembers that. And then we have balustrades and columns and things like that of this Venturist cast stone. And then all the light fixtures of bead lanterns look like that, and then the paving look like that. So this pretty much represents everything.
Okay.
And it's pretty much what I described verbally at the last meeting. Just I didn't have the board to show the samples.
Okay. Do you want to go over the landscape plan?
Sure.
And then we'll look at some of the architectural details.
the walls. So we're treating this obviously as two separate experiences. There'd be exterior experience, which is
largely dry. Again, the ceanothus and the Bougainvillea rosenca and Agave attenuatus. The trees are Arbutus marinas with the pretty red trunks. The drive coming up, we've got white roses in the background with lavender along the edge, and LA of fruitless olives. You come in, and this experience is a little more lush and blending with the house. We've got multi-trunked Boudia capitatas framing this axis here. Little bits of lawn panel along the edge. Agapanthus in the courtyard around the fountain, around the middle here. We've got hedging along this side, and this side. There's no hedging in front of the walls in front. This sort of more tropical feel is echoed again in this courtyard, this motor court here, and also on this rear patio and terrace adjacent to the living space. We've got lawn here and here. Sorry, that's a misprint. This is turf coming through here. This turf goes like that and is echoed out here.
Can I write turf right here?
Yep. This symbol is correct. This would be more of a meadow planting, like a buffalo grass.
Okay.
And then we have an existing drain. Well, there's a new drainage. It goes like this and ends up in this retention basin in the front. That's all planted with carex and other water appropriate type detention plantings. We've got clusters of king palms on either side of this meadow, and then the little orchard areas here and here. And I think that's it.
Cool.
Now, did you say this was going to be buffalo grass?
Buffalo grass.
Okay. Thanks. That should look pretty nice.
Irrigation. I assume that's going to be fine.
Denise has the details in her set.
Okay. So let's just go to the architectural details.
Now, the elevation is now at a quarter inch. It was an 1/8 inch before.
Okay.
So it's all going to be undulating smooth trowel, and all the corners are be radiused.
The framing plan.
The walls are all pretty thick, 2x8, so windows will be quite recessed.
So do you have window details?
Yeah, I submitted a sheet.
I missed it. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it. Okay.
The detail's not shown yet of the interior.
Just making sure that the window on the is recessed. Like you said, the 1 inch radius on the plaster, and you have a precast sill. Okay.
This is that window we have over the front door and the balustrades. We have a lot of those. And we have the copper gutter. Have the rolled fenestration.
Okay.
And we recall we have the hip roof to keep it a low profile.
Great. Well, thank you for your presentation. I will open up public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this project? Seeing nobody, I'll ask staff, are there any letters?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do have one letter of opposition from Ms. Paula Westbury.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I'd also like to ask the applicant to address the Tier 3 stormwater management program. Make sure they're in compliance. They need that before they can be granted final approval.
All right.
Yes, I have been in telephone communication with the lady at Stormwater Management, who's in charge of that. Oh, I'm sorry. I have been working with the lady at Stormwater Management, and we have the retention basin to capture the increase in stormwater. Oh, I thought that was on. Sorry. We're capturing the increase in the stormwater runoff, the difference between the existing stormwater and the new stormwater because of the certain amount of impervious like a roof. And we're piping the roof drains we have a drainage and grading plan. We're piping the roof drains down to this basin, and then it has an overflow, so that if it fills up in one storm, a week later it'll be empty again to capture the next. So it's all been handled, and we have there's a sheet on here that shows the best management practice for our grading, where we have the wattles. I'm sorry, I think I got it wrong. So anyway, right here we have the wattles and the silt fence, and then we have the bioswale. And like I said, I've been working it out with the lady over there, and I just talked to her this morning, and everything's under control. So we are going to comply with it, and it won't be an issue.
Okay. I assume it was all done with calculations, and staff can review those calculations to determine the different sizes of the basins and things?
Yes, we will be submitting a report to staff.
Okay. Did that satisfy staff's inquiry? They have a drawing and they've done the math, and they'll be submitting a report when they turn the drawings in for plan check.
Okay, then that would the final approval then would just need to be subject to showing
Okay.
confirmation of SWIMP compliance.
All right. Does staff have any other comments? Cool. So it's back to the board for questions of the applicant. I guess that first question, do you happen to have the chimney details? I remember we talked about it, and we liked the fact that you had different details for each one of them, different look.
No, I didn't have those detailed out, but if you recall, the time I came before the preliminary, all three fireplaces were the same.
Right.
And you asked me to change and make it different. So last time I had it different, just like they are here. And each of the three fireplaces is shown, and each of the three fireplaces is different. So they're all drawn to scale. They're at the proper height for the...
Are they going to be true masonry fireplaces and masonry chimneys, or are they the metal ones?
No, they're the metal flues with wood framing, all with stucco. And they have the red tile roof, the same kind of stucco as the stucco wall. And so they'd be just as you see there. Like I said, they're all three slightly different.
And have you done a detail like this around the Class B fireplace vent? I mean, with all of the required clearances and stuff?
Yes, I have done this before, things like this. I did a fireplace just like this a couple of years ago, a house a block away from this house. Came out really nice.
And this is basically drawn to the same scale, so we wouldn't be surprised it's not going to be like,
Yeah, it's drawn to the same scale. It was for Ed St. George. He built it, and it looks just like this. And it came out beautiful.
Cool. That was my question.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Burney.
On the subject of fireplaces, I don't think the board ever voted as to whether we like three different ones or two different ones, so I don't know if we would agree that three completely different ones. It's a large structure with a lot of detail, so I personally don't see the need for three completely different ones. But I was also wondering if have we looked at the pool and the design for all that since we're giving it final approval?
No, we haven't. Not today. Let's do two things. Let's look at the roof plan real first to look at the chimney locations, and then we'll go to the site plan and have Derek talk about the pool and things. So where's the roof plan?
Oh, it shows on the site plan. I was going to mention, I wanted all three fireplaces to be the same. And Bill May said no. He wanted them three separate.
Oops.
He was emphatic about it. In other words, he made me change them to three.
All right. So these are all landscape. Here we go. So these are the three chimneys, and this is a dormer vent over the garage?
Right.
Okay.
Kind of a cupola.
A cupola. And then what's the best way of looking at the pool area?
This is probably the best we're looking at right now, unless you know.
No, go ahead.
It's pretty self-explanatory. The jacuzzi is in the center with the two step-downs on the sides. I believe there's a pool cover over the top, slides over the jacuzzi.
Right. Yeah, the pool's 5 feet below the main patio. You get down some steps, and then you'd have the flagstone, and then we'd have the pool there. 5 feet below the house.
Any information about the arbor?
There's a little elevation of it on the elevation sheet.
Okay.
It was very simple. It was the same columns as the house, the same color as the house, and the same. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Oh, cool.
It was just very simple, just 8 feet high, and
Okay.
of course it would have some landscaping around it to soften it.
Comments or questions from other board members? If not, we'll just go straight to comments.
Mr. Chair?
Glenn?
I think the project looks really good. I think the detailing has been done well. To address Bernie's question about the chimney, I think the chimneys are actually very similar. There's stucco, they're tile. There's just slight differences of how the openings appear around it. And I think that would be very appropriate for this style house. So I have no issues with the chimney designs at all. So I think this project is ready to go, ready to be issued for final.
Thank you. Any other?
I had some questions about.
Turn your mic on.
I have some questions about the height of the chimneys, and we have all that weight. You know, by the time you stack the tile up, there's going to be a lot of weight up there. How do you plan on transferring that weight?
Well, the wood studs will be covered with plywood, and that'll be plenty strong enough to hold it up. I've done it several times before. And I had all the chimneys about 2 feet taller 2 meetings back, and the board made me lower them. So you guys made me lower them all 2 feet. Down there at the minimum, their code minimum right now, they can't go any lower. And I had them actually a little wider, and you asked me to narrow them. So in other words, I had several requests on these chimneys to make them the way I did. In other words, I did it exactly the way you told me to. So.
But that doesn't mean we were right.
I'd rather see them wider.
Oh, I actually had
And when
them
you
wider.
go up and then widen out at the top, they just look out of scale.
I had them a little wider, and somebody complained. So, but I can easily make them a couple inches wider. I'd be happy to.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, right
It
now,
looks like they're
yeah,
ready to top.
right now they're 32 inches. I can make them 36 if you'd like.
I guess what we could do is make a motion that gives you the liberty to redesign these accordingly. My concern is when I've done one of these things over a manufactured flue, I had to have, like 6 inches on each side or some crazy number, and the thing got to be too huge and looked funny, and I had to make it all out of metal studs because it had to be all non-combustible. So I was disappointed with how it looked in the end, but I followed all of the manufactured clearances. So that was my caution to you, because we're getting fairly integral. But you've done these before, so I'm not going to
Yeah,
challenge
the
you
ones
on
I've
that.
done, I've used 3-inch clearance, and the building department approved it.
Well, they who knows what it is, but I remember I having to follow the UL listings of the flue cap.
Yeah.
And okay,
I have some comments.
Mr. Miller.
As far as the chimney's concerned, I kind of like them. They kind of give it a whimsical flavor to the building. It kind of reminds me of Venice, Italy, because there they have chimneys that are absolutely crazy. They look very simple, remind me of that. So I don't have a problem with it. But and just a thought or suggestion of possibly having the porch roof be flat as opposed to angled. Is there a reason for that, or how you've got this popping up here, having that be a flat roof? Ceiling, I mean, sorry. See in the porch?
This right here?
Yeah. Just to give it a more
Oh,
traditional
I'm
look.
sorry. Please forgive me. This part was shown in cross-section.
Yeah.
And after I drew this, I forgot to change it. The owner had me make it flat on the
Okay.
inside. But on the outside, there's an arch.
Right, I understand.
Yeah, that.
Which is these?
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Great.
Exactly. So this is a cross-section right there.
Cool.
So it looks like this on the outside. So, oh yeah, I'd never do that. That'd be awful.
Sure.
All right. So with that, are there any other discussion items for this? The landscaping plan, do you have any comments?
It's good. We approved this.
Okay. So we need to formulate a motion for the board. Who would like to take a stab at that?
Mr. Chair? I'd like to make a motion for final approval for architecture
Okay.
and landscaping, with the comments of having the Tier 3 SWIP, stormwater management.
Oh, she told me we're in tier 3.
Tier 2?
Tier 2, yeah.
Can we hold off for a second?
Yeah, we have less than 1 acre of soil disturbance, and we're less than 15% slope. And she told me this morning we're tier 2.
No, you're at Tier 3. It's in the Hillside Design District. All
No,
projects.
she said that since we're under 20% slope, we don't have to comply with the Hillside Design District.
Who's she?
Well, the lady with Creek's in charge of this. I just spoke to her this morning. I'm trying to think.
Seems to me, but we'll confirm that.
Yeah.
We'll
But
just
anyway,
make it a condition of the approval is,
We'll get their approval.
Whatever tier level is deemed appropriate by staff, you would have to meet those requirements. And also that the landscaping be approved by Ann Marks from the fire department.
because this is high fire?
Yeah, it seems strange, but it is.
Okay, it's urban.
I've designed it that way.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
And I'd like to make a comment to the maker of the motion to see if he will add, well, about the chimneys, if the architect could study widening the chimneys and possibly reconsider the 3 different designs and maybe bring that back to the consent calendar with whatever you think is appropriate.
Let's ask, do you understand that, Glenn?
I'm fine with them studying, making them wider. I'm fine with if he wants to reconsider making them all the same. I'm okay with that too. I think them being different is actually better, but that's up to the designer.
Well, I can make 2 the same and 1 different.
I think I just leave it up to the designer, but as an option, I think that's fine.
I agree.
Does enough board members okay with him being free to change those? Okay, so there's no opposition to that. Good.
How wide is supposed to be? How wide? How big?
We could work that out.
You guys can work that out afterwards.
Yeah, I mean-
We're going to give you flexibility to tweak these a little bit accordingly.
I was going to ask you if you have any idea how wide you wanted it, the chimney. I mean,
Well, you ask 3 people, you get 3 different numbers. I'm sorry.
I don't have any idea, so just...
Yeah,
I would let the designer come up with that.
let the designer work on that. Is there any other discussion or comments about the motion? With that, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And this was for final approval. Okay. Motion carries. Derek, can you make sure that staff has a copy of the landscape? Brian, add this to your set. Only 6? We can start.
Thank you.
All right. Are these both the same?
No, these are older ones, so these
This is one that I had turned in. This is a later one.
Just for your clarification, what we need is we need to get a color board that can be flat that will keep
Or we
it.
can use this. It's the same thing without the real material.
well, the roof is actually different. That was superseded. And the drawings
This
match
is
this.
2-piece U.S. clay,
Colors.
the color,
Okay.
La Habra, sandstone, sandstone.
This is. Oh, yeah, okay. That's,
Why don't you just
sorry.
add text and color and cross
Okay.
this out and give this to staff? Make sure these are.
And then this, if this isn't on the drawings, it needs to be.
And if this
Oh, yeah.
is not on the light, if this image is not.
this. This is
Okay.
on tape. I'll move over here.
Okay, good. Got a project. We're going to move on to item 3, which is 2010 Emerson Avenue. This project has been here before, so I'm not going to read the project description. But we do have minutes from the previous.
That out because that front sheet doesn't show the required parking.
What are we here for? If we're here for preliminary approval, I need to double check with staff, so why don't you put yours underneath it? He'll tell us in a minute. And you have one for everybody?
Yeah.
Just put it underneath everybody's. Okay, if we have your name for the record and your presentation.
Mark Mirando, agent for the owner.
I'm Brad Simon, the owner.
Okay, and we have minutes. I forgot about that. He has two sets here. Before I want to read the minutes, and then we'll have him go explain what's different between these two sets.
The minutes from the previous meeting, the open front yard parking option with one curb cut and with the upper side of the back out area to have a curved radius is preferred. Number 2, some board members are in support a combination of one-car garage in front and the proposed one-car open space as a solution which would provide 2 parking spaces on site. Other board members cannot support the one-car garage combination due to the loss of historic stonework and the added garage mass at the front of the property.
That's it?
Yes.
Okay. Michelle, do you have a minute? Okay, why don't you explain the difference between these two sheets, because you're on for preliminary.
Last week, right before we submitted, we sent down the sheets to Trico, and the only thing that changed was the parking in the front yard, basically. All the statistics and everything else are the same. And we're showing what was approved at the modification staff hearing officer on July 28th, which is the parking in the front with the little bit of a round out that you guys wanted for backing out into the easement. And then this is the historic planter with the hedge that you wanted, and then we just put a little curb here per the staff hearing officer's approval. We need to show the area kind of cordoned off to prevent parking in that organic garden area there and also under the historic planter. So through all basically that's the only thing that changed on the plans.
Okay, time out for a second. Michelle, is it okay that we work off the drawings that he brought today?
Yes, he is just revising them to meet the standard conditions
From
for
the staff hearing officer.
so that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, excellent.
Sometimes we get our hands slapped. Okay. You're up.
So basically, through all the iterations of this project, the architecture and the drawings are shown correctly. We went to the staff hearing officer, and in early July we had the solar mod approved, and also the interior yard when the front gable was lifted up, that area within the interior yard approved. So both of the architectural modifications were approved. The solar mod, being this dormer that the bathroom's in, was approved because it met the unreasonable restriction criteria. And then this little hatched dark area, which is the area from between the hip roof and when the gable was pulled up on the front of it. And thirdly, we went back on the 28th after getting some advice from you. And this is the parking configuration, the one in the front yard with screening with the hedge, and then the sandstone curb and the herringbone pattern of pavers. And basically it maintains all the ashlar historic walls and walkways.
Okay.
And then the curb cut here gets removed, and standard city sidewalk details.
City curb details.
All right.
So basically, we're here asking for a preliminary approval,
Okay.
or even final, depending on.
Do you have any additional details of the house and the construction of the house?
We do. This is the floor plan and the roof plan. And actually, Brad wanted to put a roof element over the front porch here at the balcony on the second
that
floor.
new?
Yes, that is something that, in living in it for the last 6 or 8 months, he's come to realize that in order to block some of the sunlight, it would be nice to have. So he kind of designed it, and we just changed the corbels a little bit, to get the spacing right on the front of it. And on the next sheet, you can see the elevation. So the front elevation, everything on the lower floor is the same. The belly band comes in right here, and then the horizontal siding comes down. The belly band's kind of hidden behind the existing roof line as it hips, and then it comes forward. This is the new railing and the sunrise and the corbel spacing. And the corbel details are on the previous page. And
So this detail 3 is actually the
Is on-
corbel that was on the other side.
Right.
And what was the width of this thing?
It's about 1.5 inches.
Okay. Staff, can you get the photographs for this house? Because we have 2 new board members that I don't think have seen the actual architecture. We've always focused on that driveway thing. Any other architecture things that we're talking about?
No, I think in one of the original meetings you had talked about the levels of embellishment, but that's basically the sunrise and the corbels and...
Actually, if we could, do you want to go back and read, if we can, the minutes from like 3 meetings ago having to do about the embellishment of the architecture? Now that we got the driveway kind of stuff resolved. Here. Okay.
There's an intermediate photo that sort of transitions between those two.
Historically, it was altered without a building permit and has lost its historical standing in life. Now it's just a house.
I think there's one more black and white you need to see in there that shows what it was before we changed it.
Okay.
It didn't look like that before we changed it.
Okay.
Yeah, it had, had American Foursquare.
And I'm going to ask Glenn to read the minutes from like, I don't know, 6 months ago.
It's from November of 2009. The modifications for the roof overhang encroachment and the solar access are minor and pose no negative architectural impact. So those were the comments we gave them to go to the modification. The parking, hip dormers are preferred. Determine the designated street tree. And the 5th one is provide embellishments at the front elevation and show all final details on the plans.
Okay. Great. Do you want to have anything else for your presentation?
I'm fine.
Okay. I will open up public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this project? Seeing nobody, is there any letters from staff, for staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair. There's one letter from Ms. Paula Westbury in opposition.
Okay. All right, we turn it back to the board for questions of the applicant. And if there are no questions, we can just... Okay.
So is it uncovered parking for 2 cars now in the front? Or one uncovered in the front with landscaping around it? And didn't you have to have another space somewhere?
No.
No,
Just
ma'am.
the one? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair? Aaron?
Question, what type of hedge material are you proposing?
You can pronounce that here better than I am.
And is it noted on the plan somewhere? Is it spelled out?
I actually mentioned that in the last meeting. The street people said that the street department would have to be people determining the hedge because of the height of the drive near the exit of the driveway.
So it says new hedge under coral tree to screen parking. That's what this hedge is?
Correct.
Okay. We'll ask them that question. Okay. Any other questions?
The plant kind of looks like a giant maidenhair fern.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Denise.
this can be trimmed to any height, but it wants to be 25 feet tall. I know.
Wants to be 25.
But I mean, there are many, many other shrubs that might be more appropriate that don't top out at 25. but
Boxwood
maybe,
or something?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, how high do we need this to be, really?
Do you want to look at the site plan real close?
Probably.
And it's the inside radius.
Yeah, I see that. So you really aren't wanting something to get real tall there.
Okay. Boxwood would be fine. Stays a nice, be trimmed a nice, reasonable height.
That works too. Mhm.
Do you have another alternate? Give them some comments.
I've just seen this planted under a tree at my neighbor, a friend's house, and
Yes, you
It
can
looks-
cut it.
it looks
That's
That
good.
could be a problem with maintenance, though.
Well, you're going to be cutting it constantly, yes, that's the thing. And so I'm just thinking from a sustainability point of view, what we try to do is get the right plant in the right place, and that's a very small planter to be having that many of these in there. I think you'd be better off with a boxwood type, to tell you the honest truth, even though that's not exactly native or... but
I don't have a strong opinion.
You don't have a strong opinion. Well, we'll ask for one later.
Yeah, I do, yeah. Oh, I think the boxwood would be a better choice.
Okay, thank you.
Green Beauty is a good one.
Comments from other board members having to do with about the architecture and also addressing the proposed covered porch that he would like to have.
So this is the flat roof thing right now?
Correct.
And how does that intersect the overhang there then?
It's going to cut into the fascia. Or it could go underneath it.
I think it'd be
Yeah.
better if you went underneath it and let the fascia read, you know.
I guess I'm staring at it saying, don't. It's just making it worse. My 2 cents is I'm not liking the way it looks. It looks too funky and too... It's not reading as refined, and I'm having a difficulty with it. With the way the style of design. I understand the logic for wanting it, but...
The style was to mimic the down below.
Okay.
You know, I think I would tend to bring the gable out for the overhang and then provide a couple corbels, you know, holding the gable up. So you
Just this part of the gable or the whole gable?
well, this part here would be to bring that out for your overhang, and then you're keeping the integrity, you know, of the
Shape.
house.
That'd work.
Have more like knee
That'd give
braces.
you some overhang there.
Okay.
I don't think the flat roof fits in there. You know, I don't think it look good.
Yeah, I guess I don't see a situation wrong with having like a widow's walk kind of detailing up here. It's the continuing it up and the shadow that it casts is going to look odd. And that's where I'm arguing inside my head. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Glenn.
I too was having some issues with just looking at that flat roof on that over the balcony, and I kind of came roundabout to the same solution Jim just did, of why not just bring the gable and extend it over that upper balcony, and it seemed like it would read a little bit better and stronger. So that's a solution that I think I could support pretty easily.
Okay. Would you think that the posts need to be larger than 4x4? Or the 4x...
To support that roof.
6x6?
Yes.
You could, you can take a bigger post and then pick up some of the detailing, around the perimeter. Yeah, that'd be great. That'd look great.
That's just some crown molding and some rips and drills.
Let me ask, so this actually comes out like a bay or cantilevered out deck?
Correct.
But
Right.
this is straight horizontal line, which is right here.
Correct. It's a hip in both directions.
This part of it is not new. This part has always been down there.
The
balcony, yes.
has already been there, always been there. Okay.
Mr. Chair, just one other quick comment. On the roof plan, there's a little bit of coordination issues between this plan and this plan as to how big the balcony and the covering is, so I think that needs to be resolved.
It has to do with the scale of the two different drawings. But that can be... They all should be the same if they're on the same sheet, if it's possible. 1/4 and 3/16.
Right. The balcony's 3.6 with the 4x4, so it makes it 3.10, and that's We've cut it back some from what it is originally that you see in the as-built photos. It goes all the way out to the plate line in the other one, so we pulled it back so we get the roof element back in front of it.
Okay. Any other comments? Bernie.
We've seen this project a lot of times, and I know it's really coming a long way. But the one last thing that the parking issue to me, we were kind of divided on it. Now we have some new members, but there is really no covered parking in this idea of uncovered parking in the new ordinance from April 28th. It's brand new. This is going to be as far as I'm aware, only the second project in the city that's having no covered parking whatsoever for the resident or for guests. And I don't understand how we got here.
All I can tell you is that the project and this parking layout was approved by the staff hearing officer, and the project was in front of us for one reason or another. We gave our opinion. It's already over. But we did give our opinions to the staff hearing officer. So that much we did do.
Mr. Chair, I have some comments.
Yeah, go for it.
As far as in my personal view of this balcony, I'm perfectly fine with it based on looking at the whole structure. I mean, it's so chopped up and remodeled and remetaled and muddled. And, I mean, I just don't see how, even if we were to really put an effort into it.
The phone call.
Yes.
If you put extra effort into it, in this particular structure, like I said, I'm okay with how you have it, even though it may seem not appropriate. And Paul is bothered by it. If you look at the structure as a whole, in my opinion, it's fine.
I'll also point out that
it's our turn, sorry. Okay. Cool. Anybody else?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I
Denise.
have to weigh in with Jim about the roof on the balcony. I think his solution was much better than the flat roof, and I also really think it would be important to bring in details.
Borrow Aaron's.
Is it on?
Well, I'm thinking that it would also be really important then to bring some detail into those 6x6 posts up at the top to match what's existing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. Jim, do you have anything, or are you ready for a motion? Go for it. I'm going to put you on the spot. This can be for preliminary approval to return back to the consent calendar or to return back to the full board for review of additional details.
Yeah, I would give it preliminary approval to return to the full board with the studying the overhang over the balcony.
Okay.
I think the layout in the front is basically what we talked about at our last meeting, and maintaining some of the historic value.
Okay. Is there a person who wants to make a second that motion?
I'll second it, but we need to add one few comments on it.
Oh, okay. Any other comments? Okay. One thing we need to do is make the neighborhood preservation findings, which is going to be the first 3 items that the project that we're reviewing will meet those. Basically, just read the bullet points.
Well, we find the design has consistency in appearance, and it's compatible with the neighborhood, and the quality of the architecture and the materials with the detailing, I think is looking very well, very good.
Okay, perfect. So we have a first and a second. Are there any additions to that motion? Any comments? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'll be opposed. And motion carries. So it's an indefinite continuance back to full board, or a 2-week continuance? Let's make it indefinite.
To
Make
board or consent?
It was full board, he said. And it was reminded to us that it's a violation, so we need to say 2-week or 4-week continuance.
2? You can reschedule.
That's fine.
2-week continuance?
2-week continuance back to the full board.
Okay.
And I will announce a 10-day appeal period for this project. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Gloria, can we start? Okay, we're going to reopen the meeting, and we are on item 4, which is 819 Roberto Avenue. We have your names for the record, and then we're going to read the minutes of the previous meeting.
Christine Daniel, designer.
Okay?
I'm Ryan Muzzy, homeowner.
Okay. And this project is here. It's an in-progress review.
We do have one small adjustment to that. Apologies for the last one.
Just put that right here. Thank you for your patience. This matches your shirt, your blouse.
Yeah, it
jacket.
does.
Go full effect.
Yeah.
She's going to print the minutes? Okay. So what we're going to do is we'll start with your presentation, and staff will bring us the minutes in a couple minutes. Unless you have a copy with you of the minutes of the previous meeting.
I don't have a copy.
Don't worry
with
about it.
me.
We'll get it. So how do you want to start? How about
Let's
this
see.
switch? This
Yeah,
change?
this is the material board, and we are changing out the previous siding with this one here. It's Nichiha. Nichiha. I'm sorry.
This was going to be a vertical or
this
horizontal?
It's a horizontal siding. It's a.
James Hardy board.
This was a James Hardy. So it's a new product.
And are you going now with a vertical boards, or are you going to go with horizontal?
Nope, it's a horizontal siding.
Okay, so you're going
No, I'm
horizontal.
sorry. No, I'm
It's
sorry.
the vertical shingle
I'm
siding.
sorry. Let me start over. It's still the same type of shingle. It's a straight edge shingle, notched panel. So it's still the straight edge with the shingle pattern.
Okay. And
So
will
it's that pattern.
this pattern,
Yeah,
with
it's
by
not
this
horizontal.
manufacturer, will it be this color?
Yes, in this color.
In that color versus what that was?
Correct.
Perfect. We
Sorry for the
understand.
confusion.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is the concrete roof.
I've got a bigger version of
And
the concrete roof if you wanted to see it.
The fireplace brick or the chimney.
Okay. We've got the minutes of the previous meeting.
So, Mr. Chair, the minutes. The project bulk, mass, and scale are compatible, provides quality architecture and quality materials. Number 2, study further reducing the massing of the south elevation, especially over the front door. Number 3, provide a color and materials board. Number 4, provide exterior lighting fixture cut sheets. Number 5, study providing landscaping along the east elevation.
Okay. So how do you want to start?
Well, I can just address.
Okay. Why don't you talk about the massing along the, reducing the massing at the south and the front door.
Okay, so we have reduced the covered areas by over 100 square feet in the south elevation. Let's get to that just a second here. We've reduced this covered porch. We brought it in an additional 3.5 feet, which then reduced the deck above proportionately.
So that was like here.
It was about here where this line is,
Okay.
where that dimension line is. And then we've also reduced our exterior patio, the covered patio on the rear, And that was 12 feet out, and we brought that one in as well.
Is that supporting this cantilever?
Yes, that this extends in front of this, beyond it, below,
Okay.
right here. And so this line B is this line here, and that would be above here. So then there's roof below here, and I'll show you that elevation back here. So the two patios on the front and the back have both been reduced.
Okay.
And
Can't read my handwriting. Material boards we just went over, or we didn't go over in detail.
yeah.
So why don't you go over more about the material board?
Okay. This is the material for the concrete shingle style roof.
Okay.
And the color is this iron spot, ironwood. And this is the exterior trim. This is a hardy fiber cement trim.
Okay.
And then this is the material for the chimney.
Okay.
And then as we discussed,
The
yeah,
switch there.
this is a dry stack joint chimney. And then this siding now for the exterior.
Okay. Cool. Exterior light fixtures.
We have a cut sheet for the exterior lighting.
It's the garage door.
That's the garage door. And then we have an elevation shown here.
Okay.
So it's going to be basically this with the double.
And it's painted white?
It's we white now.
So it's going to be white. That's
Yeah.
the entrance door.
Okay.
And that's our hardware, our door hardware, all the exterior. These are our lanterns in the entrance and the exterior patio in the back. And these are our wall sconce on all the exterior.
Very nice. Okay. And landscaping along, maybe it was the west side where the garage door was? This area.
Yeah, this is the, we've changed this. This used to be concrete. This was all called out as existing concrete, and what we're going to do is a pervious material here, and we're going to do new broken concrete with decomposed granite in between. Similar, we're going to do that all around the.
Do you have any plantings along the building at all? At the base of the building?
Yeah, this is a existing planter right here, and then we have an existing hedge along this wall. So we have a wax leaf hedge
Okay.
existing, and it's pretty full.
Yeah, back here is pretty full. Over here it's a bit newer.
Okay.
And then these are going to be planted as well.
Do you have any
at the
infor-
perimeter of the building?
Do you have any information about what's being planted at the perimeter of the building?
No, not at this time.
Okay.
But it'll be similar to this perimeter.
All right. Just a question.
Yeah.
I think his concern when we addressed it was that there was no landscaping from the neighbor's view in towards the house, but we had neglected to mention that there was a privacy hedge that was already in place that we were planning to keep.
And do you want to go over your stormwater management? Are you tier 2 or tier 3? And
We're tier 3 because we're in a hillside district.
okay.
So we're having an engineer work on a tier 3 drawings and documenting the site. He hasn't done that yet, but we've provided a general tier 2 directive on A2.2 as to what direction we want to go. And I mean, we have disconnected roof drain downspouts into splash blocks, and we're conducting all of the roof runoff into this pervious planting around the perimeter of the building. And then we've got some planted swales outlined for this area here to sort of collect rain in this area here, which is all vegetated pervious area
Great.
on the downslope of the property.
All right. Anything else you want to bring to our attention?
And lastly, there was a comment about the east elevation, and we've simplified our east elevation. There was a comment that it was somewhat busy last time, so we've simplified it, and there it is there. We've adjusted our window layout, and I think it makes it much nicer.
Was this the bathroom area and this was a bedroom?
Correct.
Okay.
That's the bath. Master.
The master bath. Thank you. With that, I will open up public comment. I have 2 speaker slips. First one will be E. Watson, followed by Sean Watson.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good.
Good.
Do you have
I'm
a
very concerned about the height of the ridge.
Have a seat on the...
Oh, I have to speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
And give your name, and then I'll look on the site plan. We'll try to figure out where.
Yeah, my name is Ernest Watson, and I live at 1638 La Cornelia Drive.
If we look at the site plan, at what part of the property are you located? If this is the Roberto and La Cornelia?
Yeah, I'm La Cornelia.
Okay, so you like 1, 2, 3.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm across the street up there, but I also have property at. There, my son is, who will speak next, is immediately behind this.
All right, perfect.
Actually, I don't think he's directly behind us. I think he's over here, correct?
Yeah, I'm across the street over up there.
All right, I think we'll ask the son.
Behind the neighbor.
Yes.
Your
Past
comments?
Dolores. Well, at any rate, I'm extremely concerned about the size of the project on a very small lot. Very little exterior area for recreation or use by the owner. And a lot of hillside behind that I hope is never terraced and made into, or dug out and made into terraces. And I'm concerned about what happens along the back fence where my son's property is, whether or not it could be limited to 3 foot of height in fencing and hedges or anything else that's up there. Because we're trying to preserve a view that has just been significantly desired for many, many years by us. It's the ocean and all the islands and everything else, and this is the view that I think the owner here is wishing to capture. I'm a little concerned about the immediately neighbor to the west. There appears to be a viewing porch on the second floor. Probably the view and probably right into his property. There seem to be privacy loss there for him.
Okay.
And so essentially I think this is really too much for this property at this location. Now there are a lot of 2-story houses in the area. Not a lot, a very small amount, but they're done very well and they don't injure the other people that are adjacent to them.
Okay. Thank you
and
for
this is
time.
injuring 3 people along the top. And it's not too bad on the neighbor to the east, but the one to the west, I think, is a little encumbered by the fact that we have this lack of privacy.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next person was going to be Sean Watson.
Your neighbor. Good to meet you again.
Just if I can clarify, you happen to be the house that's this portion of the property?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, great. And just say your name for the record. Just
Sean Watson.
Okay.
My dad gave a more technical overview. Mine's a little bit more simplified. I did see. I think I saw over the last the first video or review that you did, which was broadcast, a much busier design. I think you've done a lot better job making the property look a little bit better. My biggest single soup bone issue is the height. We do want to try to preserve the view that we have as best we can. I guess I'm not sure if this is officially the right thing to do, but I have talked to the lady next door who's suffering from a stroke and can't really voice her opinion, but she's also quite concerned about how the height is going to affect her property value in the long run. So the question I have is, how high does your line actually come over the grade? Is there a survey that's been done on this that can tell us?
We'll get to that in a minute. I'll show you the drawing, the elevation, how tall it is.
Okay.
It should be on here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't begrudge you wanting to make the place a better place. That's fine. It's just it seems like we're always fighting for views, fences, and trees that are blotting out the sun where I live, and I'm just trying to keep this from happening any worse.
Thank you for coming down.
Yeah.
Thank you for following the project.
Yep.
Are there any other speakers? If not, staff, there were some letters. Do you want to briefly go through those?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a few letters. The first is from Phyllis McGee, and she just wanted to state for the board she has concerns with the FAR now being 90%. She said previous requests from the board have been to decrease the size, bulk, and scale, and so that's her primary concern is size, bulk, and scale in the neighborhood, and the FAR at 90%. The second letter from George Majors also continued to have concerns with size and scale issues. Third letter from Gerald and Margaret McKeon, and they briefly state here they're concerned with the second story over the garage and where, let's see, just concerns with where the garage is, where it will remain. Is it farther setback from the road? Oh, I'm sorry. That is, excuse me, disregard that. Third letter, Andrew Galt. It says, okay, continuing issues with size, bulk, and scale. Noticing their FAR seems continuously high, and just would like the board to look at the size, bulk, and scale. And then also a letter from Paula Westbury in opposition.
Are these old letters? Because Andy Galt was here last time and actually approved, gave us
Yeah, he
approval behind the project. So.
This letter was received today.
Interesting.
So with that, I'll close public comment, return it back to the board. Questions for the applicant. First question I wanted to go over is just for the basis of the people in the audience. Can you tell us what the overall height of the project is?
Yeah, from
that number
from
there?
the lowest point at the garage to the highest point of our new roof at the second floor, it's 24 feet. 24
0
feet.
or 8 inches?
24 feet, 0, and 1/16 of an inch.
Cool. Basically 24 feet plus or minus 1 inch. All right. Does the board have any other questions? I should actually reiterate, we've already given this project preliminary approval, and it's here for an in-progress review. So from what I learned is that preliminary approval is the basis of working drawings. So the actual size of the building, the overall form of the building is basically ready, and from our perspective, you're good to go forward except for the couple of areas that we asked you to address. So this is not a re-review of the square footage, the size of the house, and all those natures, and even the height of it, because we have reviewed that prior to giving it preliminary approval. So are there questions?
Mr. Chair, I do have a question regarding actually size.
Okay.
Just so that the neighbors are understanding and the board's understanding, can you go over, did we gain any square footage since the last? So
No.
did the FAR change?
No, it didn't. I don't know why.
They
it
said
was stated
89
at
to 90 on some of the
it's
letters from
80. Yeah, it's still the same. It's 89, and we actually decreased the bulk and scale by decreasing our exterior
So it's
cover.
the FAR calculation is 90 according to this piece of paper.
We'll confirm the square footages. I'm trying to look for it right now. Into the lot. What is the total area of the house?
With the garage?
Yeah. Actually, it's net versus gross. And it's 3,081, which is 3,081. And net is the interior, gross includes the studs. So this is the planning number. And using this number, they came up with 90%. So all I would ask is that when we gave you preliminary approval, was the net total habitable with garage about 3,081 square feet?
It was.
And I can have staff look that up right now.
Yeah.
And that will resolve the decimal point when it had to do with this. Okay. So, any other questions of the applicant?
You said there's a hedge
looks like there's a tree as well. This is an old overhead picture.
Is this tree not there anymore?
There's a yucca tree that's my neighbor's,
Uh-huh.
but it literally sits. It's kind of crawled into the right on the property line. So yes, there's a big yucca tree right here.
Okay.
That's my neighbor's, and then if you look, this picture doesn't.
You can see it here.
You barely see it here, but you can see.
I see.
Right there, it's just a small hedge that comes out. It's maybe it sits up on an elevated edge. There's like a little wall. It's about maybe 2.5.
I just
3
wanted
feet.
to know if there was this tree's still here.
Yeah, the yucca tree.
Okay.
You can see the top of it right there.
Thanks.
Okay. I actually have a response for this number here. The total habitable with garage, when we gave it preliminary approval, it was larger. It was actually 3,106 square feet, like you
Right.
said.
Yeah.
There was a reduction of 25 square feet to
Correct.
reflect this number.
Yeah.
So, and even if it went up by 25, it's a minor number, but if it went up by 250, we reevaluate you.
Totally understand.
But it was something that somebody brought up as an inconsistency, so we had to look into it.
Okay.
Questions of the board for the applicant? And if there are no questions, we'll go straight to comments. Yes, Bernie.
For our in-progress review, one of the things that we asked you to do on number 2 was to reduce the massing, and I see that you've reduced some of the outside patio area and then went upstairs, but I thought we were trying to still get it a little bit more tuned down to size with neighboring properties.
Can we reread what was said for item 2?
Study further reducing the massing of the south elevation, especially over the front door.
And they brought this back 3.5 feet. Okay. So Bernie, that's an answer to your question. Okay. Did the landscape people have a chance to look at the landscape plan and the revisions that were there? We can jump straight to questions. Go for it.
The comments, you mean?
I mean, comments, yes.
One would be to provide a irrigation plan. It doesn't have to be a...
I think isn't there one?
There is a second sheet, but it just appears to be another planting plan.
Oh.
Unless there's
You know
another
what we
one.
do have? That's
You do have one.
That's a mistake. Yeah.
Oh,
there's-
okay. So
we
you have that
an
already.
irrigation plan.
My other... That's why I asked about the yucca tree, because I was contemplating whether that side yard needed a tree or not. But I maybe study that, but if there's a spot you can put a tree, the Brisbane box would be a good choice. You have that on the other side as well.
Any other comments from board members? Yes. Let's get that.
Do you have any pictures of this material being used as shingles?
I do not. We do not have this picture.
The brochure.
It comes in what are the size dimensions, Jim?
It's 9 by 8 foot long.
9 inches tall,
Yeah.
by 8 feet long, and it's installed
It's very
staggered.
very similar to the James Hardy board material where the shingled siding which comes in units and you put it on. These are just the samples that they provided. We thought these would be the best.
Where this varies.
board.
And
So
it's a
this
straight edge.
stays the same width? It doesn't vary in width?
It does vary. Doesn't it?
The varying.'re not using the varying edges this way. It would be.
No, it's a straight edge, but it does vary in width.
These are just two.
What do you do at the corners then? I see that you don't provide any corner detail? Are you going to miter it?
Yeah, we're going to do mitered corners. We're not going to do an edge, the corner detail.
Okay. Comments from other board members? Or questions, and then we can go straight to comments.
Yeah, I have a question on section BB.
Okay.
The room, the master bath over the bath number 3 that kind of extends out over like that, is that correct? On the second floor? does it?
Yeah, this is the existing line of the house.
Yes.
And that's an existing wall, and then we extend one portion of the house over where the garage. So this line, this exterior edge of the wall actually meets the garage line, which is out 1'9" in front of this line, and then this garage roof is extended below it.
So it's actually right here.
Correct.
And this knee brace
It's
is
this
that knee
portion.
brace.
That's right. It's this portion here that extends out just a little bit beyond.
Is that the step back up?
Yeah, you can see it on the plan too, on the floor plan.
Okay.
Right.
No, looking at that elevation,
Yes.
it looks like this would be about half that size.
The amount of the rake up here on the roof part that we see.
Very little out of it.
Here, Mike.
I'm training him badly.
I'm not sure that there's. I think it's approximately there. The idea, the concept is that this overhang extends beyond here to catch that.
Okay.
Well, looking at it in elevation, this would be like almost 6 inches viewing the roof.
I believe the drawing is not drawn correctly, and really the top of this piece is kind of at the top plate. It's before the finished floor elevation. This
Right.
line right here. And we're just being really particular because we happen to notice it. But if these two lines represent the floor framing, this line should be down to about that point.
Right.
And so what he's saying is,
The roof will be above. This would all be up a little bit, you're saying?
yeah, so in elevation, you're only going to see about this much of the actual shingleness happening here. So what happens, I think this line comes back down, or maybe this line wasn't drawn correctly. Maybe this line is further back so this rides higher up. But there's something not drawn correctly in this elevation. And that's just
It'd probably look better not to even put why don't you study that to see, maybe you could make that a bigger overhang or something?
Well,
Or-
that's the intention, is we would like to make it a big, an overhang because, there's the laundry and there's some new uses out there.
Following up on what he said, there's an opportunity of keeping this roof to this point and then having this read as a 12-inch cantilever over this with little chunky pieces of wood, 24 inches on center, supporting it and not having an actual little roof underneath it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think this is going to look odd. You might study it and see.
It's not enough to derail you completely, but based upon the eyes that are looking at it, there's something not quite correct here. But there's an opportunity to resolve it by just making it a little tiny cantilever and showing how it's being supported by the dentals.
I see.
Underneath
Okay.
it. Good eye. We need to make a any more comments and then make a motion for this project.
Mr. Chair, just one last comment on the irrigation plan.
Yes.
To provide drip irrigation in the parkway instead of spray.
Parkway, okay. Well, this project is here for in progress, so we can either give it final approval, or we can have it returned to full board or to consent for final with the following comments. How does the board want to proceed?
Mr. Chair, I think we've gone over this project quite a number of times. I feel pretty good about the design, the quality of the details. What Jim had talked about, I agree, is probably a better solution to get rid of that little roof. So I would love to incorporate that into the final design as well. But I'd be very comfortable moving this to the consent calendar and resolving it there.
Yeah. Because of this one hiccup, I don't think we can give you final today, but it's a solvable solution, because whatever was drawn here doesn't quite match what in reality you have shown. But it can be corrected without too much. So final on consent, what would the comments be?
Okay, make a motion.
Okay.
A 2-week continuance, or one? We can move it to consent.
Consent can be indefinite.
Yeah, indefinite continuance to consent with the following comments: to resolve the Tier 2 or Tier 3 requirement of the project.
For the stormwater management.
Stormwater management. To modify on the east elevation, the cantilever situation, and remove the small shed roof, and to come up with a solution of cantilever and maybe brackets to visually support that second level.
Okay.
Drip irrigation in the parkway. And I'll just leave it at that and see what other items come up, but that's the motion.
Okay, is there someone who want to second that?
Second.
Second by Denise. Any additional comments?
Yeah, I'd like to add, could you study this a little more and maybe look at an example that's been installed? Because I think it's not going to look like shingles, I don't think. There's a lot of other shingle-type material that you could use, vinyl shingles, but I just don't see how this is going to work. I think you should try to find where this has been installed as shingles and see what it looks like.
Well, how do you feel about the Hardy board?
I think this would look better.
What is that predicated on? Because I think with the Nichita product, when we were looking at the installation boards, it was by far, hands down, way better looking. The paint was actually a stain rather than a paint. The full dip in paint was just this big, globby looking, chunky material, and this is something.
Mr. Chair, could I recommend just bringing a photograph of what you're discussing, what you're talking about? I think that's the best way to resolve it.
Yeah, because you've done your research, we don't see it, and also study the corners, because sometimes inexpensive or inexperienced contractors don't do good corners.
And there may be preformed corners too, so you might want to look into that from one of your manufacturers.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay. So that was added to the motion. Is that okay with the first and the second? Question for the landscapers. Was there a comment about a Brisbane box, something that needs to get added to the motion?
I said to study it. Maybe it's too crowded there because of the yucca tree.
Can you add it if Denise is okay? Reiterate it for the mission.
Study adding a Brisbane box tree or trees on the east elevation.
It's okay.
And Gloria nodded, so it's in the motion. So with that, is there any other discussion about this? This is indefinite continuance back to the consent calendar. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed. I don't think it follows the neighborhood guidelines closely enough.
Okay, thank you very much.
But you have to announce this.
It's already got.
We already did preliminary approval with a 10-day appeal, so you're on your way. And then, just for your record, we like to keep a flat one for the city file. So you just, when you get that all done, make a Xerox of it or a color photograph.
And also put some information on the drawings if it's not already there. The materials actually in the drawings, just tie them together.
Okay.
And just the manufacturer. and a PDF of the exterior light fixtures. If you have on here,
the sheet. Oh,
you
okay.
call it an XYZ by so and so, and a little picture, and then there'll be a where it shows on the plan.
Got it.
Take this and refix the new version. And send it.
You guys can have this.
Great.
They have one over there.
Thank you.
Can I have that papers? Thank you. We are on to item 5, which is 1213 Harbor Hills Drive. You're running solo?
Mark should be here any second, but I'm happy to start without him.
We're running 10 minutes late? My goodness gracious. It's okay. We have your name for the record, and then we'll read the minutes of the previous meeting.
Okay. Jarrett Gorin of Vanguard Planning, and I'm representing Sharon and Tony Cline Preparo, the owners of the property.
Okay.
And we have Mark Shields from Design Arc, the architect.
Hi, Mark Shields, just barely on time. How's everybody?
Good.
Good.
Mr. Chair, the minutes from the previous hearing. Number 1, study the apparent height and provide additional section drawings through the building. Number 2, study reducing the massing of the central element on the upper level. Number 3, return with a higher level of detailing and information, including retaining walls and information on colors and conceptual landscaping. Number 4, the architectural style is positive, breaking up the development at the upper end of the site. To appear village-like as positive. The architecture is well coordinated.
Great. We just had staff walk in, so I want to check with staff if they want to say anything before we start with your presentation.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. This project is in the midst of a DART submittal right now, and this project requires a street frontage modification by the staff hearing officer. And something I didn't mention from the last review is there's a development envelope that's defined on the parcel immediately north of this project. It was involved in a lot line adjustment in 2005. And I have the plans for that here, and the development envelope may actually show on that plan. But the Planning Commission actually limited development in that development envelope to 3,300 square feet, including a garage on that parcel as part of the conditions. The ABR only reviewed a residence conceptually on that parcel. It didn't go all the way through ABR review, but as part of the approved lot line adjustment, there was a limitation on the square footage of that building.
Can you
How big was the parcel? That parcel, it has a similar slope to the subject parcel. It's about 38%, but that parcel is significantly smaller. It's before I misspeak. It is a net of 27,767 square feet, and the 3,300 square foot limitation is about 69% FAR on that parcel.
Okay, I didn't quite follow 100% of that. This development envelope is in the adjacent parcel. It's not on the parcel we're reviewing tonight.
That's correct. It's on the adjacent parcel. They would share driveway access from Harbor Hills.
So this driveway easement they're talking about, that's a shared easement, and the development envelope is for this upper lot.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, and you're just telling us that just to tell us.
Just so you know what's been considered in reviews of.
Is there a development envelope for the parcel that we're reviewing today?
There is not. No.
Okay. Good. Presentation.
Oh, good. Okay.
Let me start real quick. Sure.
And we've known about this. I mean, this was a plan that got done years ago. It was before there was a single-family design board. I think it's helpful for us to have the information. I'm not sure how relevant it is because the parcel is about half the size of the parcel we're dealing with here, and it's for a house that I believe the approvals have expired for. I don't know what would happen if they came back today. What's going on? I mean, it's great information, but I'm just not sure what bearing it has with what we're looking at here. And that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you. Architecture.
Okay, architecture.
That's why we're here.
I think last time you guys liked the overall site plan and general configuration of the design. And I don't know if we need to review the footprint again, but we did cut a few more sections. It's interesting to note that this section here gives you a good idea of how the house steps back up the slope and how large the lot is. Actually, when you're standing here, I think you'd only be able to see maybe the top story of the house because of the pool in the foreground and the retaining wall. So there's not a whole lot of the house visible from down below. I think, if you're way out in the middle of the mesa neighborhood, you might be able to see it, but the floor plan hasn't changed. We do have some new sections. Yeah, well, first of all, we heard you regarding the idea of studying the main gable form, which was in the front of the house, kind of the more forward portion of the living room. And this was a gable form, and we changed that to a hip, which helps considerably in terms of the, puts it well below the 30-foot height limit, and also kind of tapers the house back so it doesn't appear to be so vertical. We also cut another site section here, which, take the camera, helps you see how the house staggers down the hillside. It pretty much does that in every single section. The trellis is proud of the main bulk of the building, but that's a lighter element. So we're trying to always work with the stepping as it goes back up the hillside. Our other sections are actually section elevations, which are just as good. This is the west elevation, which shows section through the driveway, the west elevation, and the deck again, and the pool below terracing down the hillside. Let's see if we have one more. This site section, which is a new drawing for you guys, also shows you where we've clipped the hip, and it's about 3 feet or so below the height limit at this point. Again, this is another section showing the east elevation section, and again, the east side, which is the approach side, the project is really buried into the hillside, so that one is a very minimal exposure, architectural exposure. And of course the north elevation, which is again a section through the road looking out towards the ocean, which you only see a one-story portion of the building because you're on the upper part of the property. So we've tried to step the house at every section. We've really tried to step the house with the slope back up, which I believe is one of the single-family home design review board guidelines. And I think we had good neighborhood support last time, and I don't think there's oh yeah, there's one other thing I forgot. We also have on the plans, we've called out some of the exterior materials to talk about the request for more details, and all exterior walls to be 7/8 plaster, roof materials 2-piece clay mission tile. The stone walls are Santa Barbara sandstone with buff tinted grout color. The surfaces on the exterior pools and decks are Cherokee Creek flagstone with a tinted grout. The second story surface of the deck is Tecate tile. Doesn't really affect you guys too much. The wrought iron balconies are rustic brown black in finish, and all exposed exterior wood is to be stained a medium dark brown. and the building will be white. So that's the very Mediterranean in terms of the color palette and the materials and detailing. Also, we have a schematic conceptual for the landscape persons down that way. It's Denise. Send one down that way too. Since it's so conceptual, we thought it might be kind of clearer just to call out the plant material from the southern elevation. And so this is very conceptual, kind of what we're thinking landscape-wise. Italian cypress here and there to accentuate the verticality and split massing up. The Washingtonian robusta Mexican fan palms behind the building. Possibly one Phoenix canariensis down by the pool deck, which would be clipped, kind of pineapple style. A few olives spattered here and there down the hillside. We wanted to go with some native ground cover below the house, something like a ceanothus. Bougainvillea here and there climbing up the walls. Trumpet vine on the trellis that separates the garage from the house. Let's see what else have we done. One jacaranda, because our client likes that dark blue color, which I think would be nice as well. Kind of, again, splits off the massing from the garage to the main residence. Some agaves here and there, a kangaroo paw closer to the house, potted plants, that sort of thing. In the foreground, below the pool retaining wall, which is sandstone, maybe a smattering of some New Zealand flax.
Cool.
And also, we're thinking about introducing an oak tree downslope as well. The slope now is made up of native grasses and some native ground covers. So for the rest of the slope, we're thinking just re-inhabit it with native grasses. So kind of blend it back out into the natural surroundings. I think with that, I hope that kind of answers all your questions.
With that, I will open up public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this project? Seeing no one and no speaker slips, we can go back to staff.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We just have one letter in opposition from Ms. Paula Westbury.
Okay. Question for the applicant. We mentioned something about the apparent height. Did you ever anywhere note what the apparent height is in a couple of areas?
We could scale that. We didn't actually dimension it.
Okay.
It's
Here on section 8. Go to section A.
Let's go to section A and take a look at that.
What the guideline looks for is starting from the toe of the retaining wall up to this point. This would be the apparent height, and we know it's going to be 42 or 48 or 52 or some number. But we kind of like to know what that number is, even though the 30-foot follows the grade. We also look at the apparent height because if this is going to be a 6-foot retaining wall, then what's the overall the apparent height as asked for in the guidelines. Second question was the retaining wall. Is this kind of the only area where you went to detail retaining walls?
That's it, really. It's just the foreground to the pool to give us a little bit of a pool deck, which is back towards the house, and that's terraced. So the pool's an infinity edge pool, terracing down to the retaining wall, which is the Santa Barbara sandstone retaining wall.
Okay.
So it has that layered, we're trying to layer that whole area rather than have one tall retaining wall at the base of the project. We really need that to provide some sort of outdoor space that's level on the ground floor.
And that's really our only exterior retaining wall.
It really is. All the other retaining walls are buried within the structure, which is kind of nice, actually.
One last question I had is, what are your plate heights? I was trying to figure it out. There was another drawing somewhere.
I should have my scale with me.
Maybe it was over here.
You can measure a section if you like. Can we do that?
Here's a section right here.
We have finished floor heights here. Plate height's 12 feet in the great
There's
room.
12 feet, okay.
And the plate height downstairs is
probably 10.
Probably 9 or 10.
Okay. Those are my...
And the apparent height, we could just measure it right now. I mean, from the very bottom, just extrapolating, It's really easy to see from the very, very bottom retaining wall below the pool.
About 44.
44 feet.
Okay.
Well, that's actually to the top of the chimney, so it's actually only 38, maybe 38-ish.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions from any other members?
Mr. Chair, is this project in high fire, or is this not high fire?
I don't think it's high fire because it's right on the coast. But I really don't know if it's high fire. I don't believe it is.
I see a planner going, yes.
I think it is in the high fire hazard area, and we actually have a fire mitigation plan as part of a biological survey we did along with this that has landscape clearance areas and everything else like that in it.
Okay, that's my question.
Chair, I have one question.
Mr. Miller.
This delightful little finial thing, is that a weather vane or a copper?
No, Brian.
It's a pine tree in the back.
No.
What drawing? What page is it on?
West elevation?
That is, I believe, a little finial. Weather vane of some sort.
So are you thinking of something like on the top of the courthouse? That kind of a...
Not that extravagant. Probably a small wrought iron weather vane of some sort.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Even where these retaining walls appear, the stone, is that part of this? How high are those?
There is one between the house and the garage. Yes, that's that one, which is, I think it's best to measure it in elevation. It's actually about 9 feet high from grade.
Do we have an elevation that shows it with no landscaping in front of it?
We have this section over here. We have a bunch of sections. Let's see if we can find a section with that.
How long is it? It's only about 10 feet long, though.
Yeah, it's like 12 feet long. I don't see it in any of those sections. Let's go back one. Nope.
This is the length of it, though, right?
This
is the wall.
That's the length of it, and it's 16 feet. And then the rest of the stone you see is actually the base of the garage, kind of a wainscot to the base of the detached garage.
You can see it a little better. We're talking about that little section right there.
Questions? And if there's no other questions, how about some comments from board members? I guess I had one last question. Between your neighbor's property and this house, is there going to be a sight line from where Harbor Hills ends and then it becomes your private driveway easement? Will there be a visual slot for like...
There will be, and we could look on the overall site plan to see if we have just the neighboring...
How much of this house went over to this direction?
Yeah, we've probably got a good...
Show it on the overall site plan. Right here.
This one's better.
Okay.
So that's the neighboring house.
Which happens to be...
That's the
owners.
applicant for this house.
Yeah. The pool in between, so there's a good 75 feet between.
Well, and this house is also quite a ways below this house as well.
Thank you.
And this house is quite a bit higher than this house. So I don't think we're really blocking anybody's ocean view.
Are there comments from the board members?
Mr. Chair? Kind of continuing with the comments from the last meeting, I still think the architecture is really, really good. And I really appreciate moving from that gable form down to the hip. That really helped that elevation and made it read a lot less dominant. So I think that was a very positive move. The reason why I asked about the high fire had to do with some of the landscaping selections and how close maybe they are to the building. And I'll maybe let the landscaping people follow up on that. But in general, I think the project is of very high quality, and I could support it.
Okay. Additional comments?
Well, when you come back, I'd like to see a bigger site plan so that we can actually read the elevations, how they're stepping down, and how the slopes are going, and also the retaining walls. So if you're going to reuse that site plan, why don't you blow it up so we can read
See
it? Yeah.
Actually see it.
Yeah.
Okay. Comments? Bernie?
I'm sitting here a little bit concerned because the neighborhood that has become established in that vicinity on that side of Cliff Drive and in that whole neighborhood, Harbor Hills and La Vista del Oceano, it's changed so quickly in the last few years. There was nothing there, and then came the NPO and all this stuff about we don't want mansionization, and now we have it up there. So in this particular one, I think the house is beautifully designed, and I think that the designers are trying to keep it with a lower profile, but still I'm looking at it and wondering, how is that neighborhood that we're creating one by one becoming compatible? Is this style going to be compatible with the ones? And I don't know, because I haven't seen any of the neighboring properties really closely enough. I haven't seen any story poles or anything here to wonder when I'm at Shoreline Park and I'm looking at that, how is it going to be? How tall is it going to be? And how much of an estate are we going to see when we're just down on the mesa?
Thank you. Additional comments from other members?
Yes.
Denise?
I'm wondering about down here below, further down the slope, just to piggyback on what Bernie just said, the addition of some oak trees and things like that would certainly mitigate any view of a home that seems stuck on the hill. I don't think it is. I think it's really well done and really steps nicely down the slope. Considering the constraints of the lot, I don't see what else you could do. So I think it's beautifully designed. I think the addition with a real good landscaping plan with a lot of attention paid to that, what the view will be looking back up the slope, I think this will be a beautiful project.
Okay.
I just want to make a comment. I think the plans are extraordinary. I love them. I think it's a great house. I think it's a signature home for this area, and I know she has concern about the size, but I think it's really well done. I think it's
Thank you.
a good home.
I think the tree placement is critical. I mean, I think that helps with the massing. I think that's what a lot of those homes up there are missing from like the shoreline park view. It's pretty barren in general. That was just a grassy slope to begin with, and it'd be nice if there were more trees.
I'll follow on what Denise and Brian were saying. The architecture is great, and what's interesting about it is that it's broken up into several facets. So that makes it interesting to look at from afar, and then having landscaping in here will help break it up so it doesn't read like a solid wall. Because some of these other buildings that have been built are very massive, and the whole reason for this apparent height kind of thing was to sort of get rid of this huge building that's on the top. So I think your architecture leads you to a way of solving the problem. I agree with Jim Zimmerman that we need more information and detail, and we'll study that and how it affects your plate heights and the overall size of the house. But you're going about it the correct way, and so there's no I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
So at this point, the board can make a motion. It's going to be for comments only, and the project will be going on to staff hearing officer, planning commission, one or the other, or we can ask for it to come back again for further refinement if that's what we would like prior to it being reviewed for their street frontage mod.
Chair?
Denise.
Motion, but a comment to move it on down the line with positive comments.
Can you be more specific about the positive comments?
Yes, of course. I think we've been saying them, that the architecture is exemplary, that it is well suited to the size of the lot.
How it's broken into several
Broken
facets.
into several facets so that it gives one a sense of village instead of a gigantic house that is abruptly placed on the lot.
Okay.
What else can I say?
What will we look for the next time we see it?
Great landscaping, landscape plans to mitigate any views from Shoreline Park up at the structure. Fire zoning on the landscape plan and a stamp from Ann Marks.
They don't even have preliminary yet.
I know, but we're just they'll be back.
All right.
Would there be clarification on the retaining walls?
How about we need a person to second it first?
Second.
All right. Mr. Miller, how would you like to alter or add to it?
Did you already mention it about
The enlarging the site plan to clarify the, so you have a better idea of the retaining walls?
How about a conceptual grading plan showing retaining wall heights and toe slopes at a larger scale? Suggest 1/8.
That's good.
Yes, we'll add that to it.
Okay. Any other discussion?
The last time, I thought you said maybe someone else also agreed that the size was an issue, or now did we just get past that?
Mr. Chair, would you like me to read the comments?
Yeah.
It says, study reducing the massing of the central element of the upper level.
The central element would be where that front living room was. It's a 12-foot plate, but they changed it from a gable end to a hip. And they have the gable end at the back. And the section they drew is actually through the stairs, not through that family room area. So I want to say it's still open or unresolved in my mind, but there's, looking at a 16th-inch scale, there's a lot of room for fudging. So, maybe not this one, the another one. The central mass was lowering this thing, and the gable end was a fabulous move. And now this is a 12-foot plate. Does it need to be 12-foot plate? I think it can be discussed at the next hearing, but knowing what that overall apparent height kind of thing is, you're only 40-some feet, which is not ridiculous. And there isn't a balcony in front. This is actually a man inside the room.
That's
Okay.
right. There's like a ledge. That's like a pot shelf.
Oh.
It should be actually deeper than that, shown in the elevation.
The window was pushed back, so it's like a little balcony behind
window's
that.
back.
Okay. So, Bernie, I don't know if that answered your question, but I don't think we made a comment about reducing the square footage of the structure. It was more working on reducing the mass and how the apparent height was a critical thing. Okay. Any other discussion for the motion? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries, and this is an indefinite continuance. You can put yourself back on when you have the next generation of drawings.
Landscaping?
I don't remember. One more time. It's their choice. It does not have to come back to full board. Does the board want to see that project one more time before it goes to the staff hearing officer? You know what? They wouldn't get preliminary if it was a pink house.
Oh, you said white, off-white.
He said off-white.
Typical Mediterranean.
It's going to come back for a preliminary. Is that understood? It's going to the staff hearing officer to get the front street mod, and then it'll be back in front of the board with additional information. Okay. We need to move on to the next one, which is item 6, which is 1409 La Cima Road. This is a new item, so I'll be reading the project description. Is that applicant here today? Cool. So you are a new architect
Yes.
on the project. So is it a new design?
It is.
So let's just start over from scratch and not bother reading the old notes.
All right. But I followed them so closely.
This is a new project?
It was a new project because the old project expired.
Okay.
But, the old project was seen 3 different times, and
Okay.
we can start over.
What's the difference between those drawings and these?
These are color. And
Okay.
they're not folded.
Okay. If that's the only change, let's put them on top. But if you told me, well, I changed the doors and windows. Okay. 1409 Lacima Road, new project. I'll read the project description. The proposal for a complete exterior remodel and addition of 264 square feet on the first floor, a new 710 square foot second story, and a 499 square foot attached 2-car garage for an existing 1,154 square foot 1-story single-family residence. Which would be 2 as single family. The new attached garage would be located in the same place as the existing detached garage that will be demolished. The second story is proposed above the garage. The proposed total of 2,627 square feet on the 19,000 square foot lot is in the Hillside Design District. It's 60% of the maximum guideline Florida area ratio. So if we have your name for the record and maybe some photographs, because we have 2 new members on the board since this project was heard before.
My name is Justin Van Mullum. I'm with On Design Architects. And if I could see the photographs. So, is everyone familiar with the location of the lot? It's
Most of us have went past it and driven past it.
Okay. So it's a kind of a mixed neighborhood. And let me start with, there's a lot going on, different types of architecture, whether it be across the street or from one side to the other. And
You may.
this is right across the street. Nice.
Keep all the photographs in the same spot. The TV guy zooms in on it.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a view from on site. This is the looking down the road. That's the house right there. It has a gravel roof that's low sloped, kind of interesting. Surprising, I guess is a better word for it. But it didn't have a lot of street appeal. The front door is off to the side, so you go down this in between this garage that we're looking at trying to save the garage. It's in the setback. You can't really park a car in front of it without having the car sticking out in the street.
Okay.
There's just too much structural work that needs to be done to the existing garage to really save it. So when we looked at everything, the house is just a 2-story house and has a bathroom that's kind of in between these 2 bedrooms, and then
It's
it has
an existing 2-story house?
I'm sorry, an existing 2-bedroom house. It's a 1-story house. There's a difference here about 4 feet between the finished floor of the house and the garage. So looking at the fact that we needed to replace the garage you can't park a car in front of it. There's not a lot of street parking.
Okay.
What we decided to do is, before it was going to be a scraped building, and they were talking about retaining walls and kind of building out over into this area. We came back and said, I think that it's worth saving the existing building. We could re-roof it, which it needs to have anyway. We can keep a lot of what's happening. The existing front door kind of comes in right here, but it needs a sense of entry. It needs some curb appeal. The garage needs to be set back far enough that you could have guests come and visit, and there's very little street parking because of the way the streets are, no curbs and such. So the concept was to just kind of rework this whole kitchen area here and keep the great room, keep the bedrooms, create a stairs, since there's not a full story in between the finished floor of the house and the finished floor of the garage. We don't have a lot of stairs going up. And we're just playing with colors right now, but that gives you an idea. We've got just 2 bedrooms, not huge, but they work, a small master bath. And then since we have we drop off in elevation right in this area, so we have an opportunity that you can have an element like this. It's not really a full story from the existing finished floor, but so you'll be able to kind of get a nice view of the details that's happening here. Just a small little balcony. The idea is to redo the roof, the existing roof, with a lightweight S-tile, but use the starter mission tile. It's a faux mission tile. So that way we don't have to do the structural upgrades because the existing building just couldn't handle it, and it would blow the budget. And then we would have a nice second story, but there's a nice relationship because it's not a full second story in relationship to the existing house. We've got a front door that you can see, some little bit of ironwork, maybe a finial here, a little bit of detail, and we're playing with the different colors with the building. Maybe it's a little bit more earth tone. We're working those particulars out. But we've taken an existing structure, we've reused everything that's there, we've taken down the existing 2-car garage, we've had to pull it back to meet today's setbacks. We're adding a second story over that and putting in a master bedroom, bath, and a small little bedroom. Make this a 4-bedroom house, but with very little square footage that's being used common area.
Great.
It's not too aggressive in comparison to even though there was 3 iterations before this, even compared to the last iteration, this is extremely subdued in square footage, and it's using the existing building.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So with that, I will open up public comment, and I have 3 speaker slips. So the person can come up here to this chair. First will be Deborah Cavada, followed by Bonnie Hamilton. And if you can pronounce your name correctly in the microphone, I would appreciate it.
Deborah Cavanda. And it is scaled back. I don't like the idea of the second story from my point of view because it kind of from across the canyon. I know it's hard to figure out.
Where do you, if we look at this map right here, where would you be?
Where's the house?
I believe the house is this parcel right here at the knuckle of the...
Well, I'm on Kaisera over here. So I'm over here. So as you're looking at the front door and the garage, well, I'm looking from this way over. So as the sun sets, I have a silhouette. So this is just a higher...
Above you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's more... So it's more privacy issues, but it is far away.
So you would be living over here in this, if this is the road turning right here?
I'm over here.
You're over here.
Yeah, I'm probably right over here.
Okay.
So what would you say the elevation difference?
It's okay. We'll look at that.
Okay. And then the steepness of the slope, because it is a really steep property.
Okay.
But where the edge of the garage is. And that's all I have to say right now.
Well, thank you, Deborah.
Okay.
Now we can Cavada.
I guess one more thing is that when you're driving up the street, all the homes that he was showing you, they all look really small. So this will be the largest house as you're driving up La Cima until you get to the end of La Cima, which is a massive house.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Bonna Hamilton, followed by Margie Manquist. Hi, can you say your name for the record?
Bonna Hamilton. And I just want to point out a couple of things. They scaled way back. We're very happy. We think that was very neighborly of them to do that. Pretty much half. So that's, and I love the plans. I love the drawings. As we keep reiterating, it is a very narrow road. La Cima is really a one-lane road. I want to know where all the construction, all the trucks are going to be held. Where are they going to be put? Because I'm the last house on the left. I'm on the other side.
On the left. Last house on the left.
I'm the last house. There's Margie's house is next to them. They only have really two. They have one neighbor on Lacima. Then they have Margie, which she'll speak next. And then I'm the last house. Our driveway will be the turnaround driveway, which we do not want. It's a private drive. We have to maintain it. We have to slurry it. And I have an invisible fence for my dogs, so my dogs run up and down the driveway. So I need to be assured that there will not be any construction trucks on the property.
Thank you.
Also, I would like to know about the story poles. Are there going to be any story poles?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Okay.
In this session?
Yeah, well, I'll ask the question. I don't have an answer for you yet.
Okay. So that's my main concern, is the parking and the construction site.
Thank you.
Okay.
Last speaker will be Margie Manquist.
Hello, I'm Margie Mainquist, and I'm the nearest neighbor at 1411 La Cima.
Where in relationship to the house are you?
Let's see.
This is the road right here.
The road is right here, and the existing garage is kind of right there.
La Cima, I'm right here.
Okay.
Right here.
All right.
Roughly.
And the other neighbor was right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would start my comments by saying I am, as our other neighbors are, very pleased to see the alterations in the design. And we like the looks of the design, mass and scale for the most part. And I think that's a big breakthrough. I'm sorry that we didn't actually get any consultations according to the Good Neighbor Guidelines. We just learned about this new drawing 5 days ago. But nevertheless, we are glad to be at least at this place. One of my concerns is I don't see my house on the plot plan, and the concept review requires a footprint of adjacent structures. So it's not there, and the scale, by comparison, isn't there. One of my other questions or concerns is what is the south elevation, which is what I'll be viewing. I don't see that, and so I really want to see what I will be seeing from my home and yard, which is the nearest place. And the question, of course, is what's the current roof line going to be? Also, Debbie didn't mention the neighbor, but there is a balcony coming up. It looks like a balcony, a turret, that's going to face out. And the question is that going to be a problem for anybody's privacy? We don't know the answer to that. We're just curious.
We'll look at that.
The project description states that the new garage will be in the same location as the previous. But the drawing looks like it's set back, and I think he just mentioned it is. So that's kind of inconsistent in the drawings. Which speaks to the concern that we all have about the safety and welfare about this narrow road. It's a very, very, very narrow road. The driveway backs out onto a dangerous curve, and so that's quite concerning in terms of any driving in or out. And then the parking for visitors, which literally, unless they can park in that driveway, would be questionable. My other concern, like Bonus, is that we do maintain this private drive, which comes right alongside of the house. It is the major turning area that FedEx trucks use now, for instance, and that's so minor of an impact, we don't worry about that. But we're really concerned about where will all these trucks, 2-ton trucks, be driving, parking, turning around. So that's a big concern.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chair, if I can address some questions.
Let's just finish. No. Are there any other speakers? We don't have any other speaker slips. Staff, are there letters?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. I do have 3 letters. I'll read those here for you. The first is from Don Zimmer. He's a resident at 1410 La Cima Road. And he would like the board to place a few conditions on the proposed addition and remodel. He's stating he cannot find the location of the trash enclosure If the neighbors to the south would allow an enclosure off their existing driveway, it would be hidden from the street elevation, and this location would be easily accessible to BFI since the driveway is used for the 3 houses to the south. It says there is a very unsightly electric power feed above ground that feeds the proposed development. The power feed should be placed underground. And he has concerns regarding dust control and reasonable construction hours should be conditioned for approval. Second letter from Gerald and Margaret McKeon stating, we've received the conceptual drawing and the verbal description of the proposed changes at 1409 Lacima Road. They are concerned that their view may be somewhat limited by the proposed second story over the garage. They are not sure if the garage will remain in its location or whether it be further set back from the road. If the garage remains where it is at the second story and the second story is added, the road may seem too close in right there as if it were an alley. Such a result may not be aesthetically pleasing to all. They are also concerned with safety considerations during construction and that Lacima is a narrow road with limited parking. The proposed construction would be taking place where the road curves sharply and the visibility is extremely limited. And a third letter from Ms. Paula Westbury in opposition.
Thank you very much. So we'll ask you some questions if we had any concerns from what the speakers brought up, and you can follow up on that. So does the board have questions for the applicant? The two of you haven't seen this project before, but the rest of us have seen the prior iteration, so we're fairly familiar with the location.
Mr. Chair, just a question that might relieve a lot of issues with neighborhood context. Is there any aerial photography or that shows the context of how the neighbors...
That would have been a good idea to bring.
Probably the next time. The county has their flood control map, which is basically all the footprints.
Or just a Google Earth or something.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Yes.
It would show the adjacent houses.
Vegetation and drives and all kinds of things.
Okay.
I guess I have another question. As far as delineation of hardscape, I see there's a double car garage door, then on the rear of the garage there's another door.
That is a great question because that helps us with, there's structurally that costs money, but what that allows us to do is during construction we can park vehicles in this flat area, and so that gives us that opportunity.
What's the intent after construction?
If you need to bring a barbecue or a hot tub or anything else back there, that is your only access point because this drops off steeply and you just don't have room in this location.
So I'm trying to understand where the limits of the hardscape are.
Limits of the hardscape, as far as the driveway, you've got the driveway would end approximately here. Maybe we could squeeze a little bit more in here. The idea being trying to get parking for 3 vehicles if we had to for visitation, because there is no street parking. And then we have hardscape in this area. Existing right now, there's hardscape right here. We're removing that because it's just one big square that doesn't have a connection really to where we want. The views are more towards here and the living space, and so that's where we'd like to have the hardscape. So we're removing hardscape in this location and putting it back in here.
So, is that a neighbor's house?
That's the driveway to the third speaker, and that is her house. And it's set far back. I think it's right about here.
Okay.
Yes, Aaron.
How would one get from the trash area to the driveway? Would there be steps involved with that?
It's flat enough to. That's why we put it in this location. You can't walk around because it starts to slope off, but you can walk through to this door to this door, and then you put your trash here, and then you have access from this point from here to here without a problem.
Let me make sure Aaron's finished before we jump to you. Anything else? Brian?
Do you understand what that one letter that neighbor said about sharing a trash area? Is that clear to you?
One person's suggestion was because there's a driveway here, he's thinking that maybe the trash can be located over here, because if the trash people are going to be on this road servicing these two houses, they can also service your house. Then whoever lives over here doesn't have to see it as he goes down the road. That's how I heard the letter, or the comment from the citizens.
I did not
explore that. See if that's enough.
That might be a great option for you.
And the only public road it turns right at that area, so we'd have to have an easement, or it would just be access from here to here. So I guess I understand it now. Thank you.
Mr. Zimmerman.
I think you have enough width where you could maybe get a turnaround here so that you wouldn't have to back out.
So this is a comment, or form it into a question. Is there enough room to build a little turnaround here? Would there be enough room, you think?
I think that there could be. You would be the only. You would probably want to be backing up and going in this direction, because that's the downhill, and it looks like, depending on which parking space, you would have room. If it was this parking space, probably not this one.
Can we, if there are no more questions, how about some comments and questions about the architecture?
Mr. Chair, I'll jump in. In general, I think it's a relatively good solution, adding the second floor over the garage, which is all the way at grade, so it's not a full 2 stories even. Stylistically, it seems appropriate. There's a couple items that my eye went to that I'll kind of point to. Is this little corner turret element. Although the idea is good, I think it seems a little bit too vertical. It feels not proportional at this point. It's relatively easy to just lower the roof, and it also will help out the height issue on that corner. And you have the same view height because the floor didn't change. It just seems a little too vertical. And then this little roof over the garage, you may want to just look at some other options of just timbers or corbels or something. I'm not sure it's going to read as strong, but without the detail, it's hard to really understand it. But in general, I feel pretty good about the architecture.
Great. Additional comments from people?
Yeah, I like the design. I think that the difference in elevation of the second floor to the first floor, being that it drops 4 feet, you get a feeling of a split level instead of a full 2-story. I like the turret. I think it's a nice element there. I think it's probably too small for people to spend a lot of time out there. It's more of a design element, I think. I think it's far enough away from the neighbors where you're not going to be looking down in into the backyard or anything.
If you don't mind me tagging on, things that our board reviews, this is the location of the outdoor living space, and when it's of a certain size, we like to make sure that it's at least 15 feet from the property line. Otherwise, we feel like these outdoor living spaces intrude too much on the other person's privacy. And in this case, if this is 20, we're about 30 feet away, so there is no concern from our perspective as a board for the proximity of the deck. It's situated quite nicely.
Mr. Chair?
Aaron.
My comments were the trash enclosure and garage are sort of intruding on the oak canopy, so we might want to see an arborist report for that. The east elevation, the garage door in the rear, I personally don't feel that elevation benefits from that large door. A more complete hardscape plan, like Glenn mentioned, grading. And you mentioned about parking in the front yard. if we're going to provide a parking space, we'd want it outside the setback, or inside the setback, I should say.
Denise, you have anything?
I have favorable comments about the architecture. I think it works really well, and I agree with the rest.
I actually like, I'll just jump in, I like the idea of having this door in the back, and it's really meant for service, and I completely agree with it, whether it's a jacuzzi or just a lawnmower. I mean, that's how that door is going to get used every day. This area, you made the mistake of saying parking 3 cars, and the city doesn't even acknowledge the fact that we park our cars in front of a closed garage door, that's not a parking, that's a driveway apron for access to the garage where we park our cars. So what we like to see is a hardscape plan that minimizes the amount of hardscape, and I'll let you decide how to minimize it, but the key word is to minimize the hardscape that's in the front yard. And promoting parking in the front of an additional vehicle is something that we shy away from, and how you get access to here can be addressed. The comment having to do with story poles, it was asked, and we do every once in a while evaluate that. And from my perspective, I don't see a concern with story poles. I do like the whimsicalness of it, and that really falls into your design flair. If you like what you have, then you run with it. And if at the end, if it looks awkward, your name's attached to it. But if it looks great, then you're fabulous. One comment that I'd wonder is, if you could drop this plate, say 12 to 18 inches, because this is over the stairs, it's not really needed to be full height, and maybe that would break up the roof just a little bit to sort of have kind of a mid-level. I love the way that you did something over the garage door, because that elevation needs something. I happen to be okay with it. Glenn had a concern. So there's more than one way to solve this. So I'm glad you're doing something at this point, and just continue to refine it. But does any other board member want to comment about the need for story poles? Here is a picture of the actual house, kind of almost a front-end view, so you can see where the existing garage is. Except currently the garage is less than 20 feet away from the front yard, and now this new garage will be 20 feet away. So is there a need? Does anyone sense story poles would be important in this application?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to actually delay that answer until I see more of the context of the neighbors.
Perfect. That's a good response. So with that, I think we've said enough. Majority of it was positive, with a couple of comments to have you come back to the board with some additional information. So does someone want to craft a motion?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I'll try. I'd like to make a motion for indefinite continuance.
2 weeks?
2 weeks, if we could put it on the schedule. 2 weeks. For the applicant to come back and provide hardscape information, provide either a survey or aerial photography that identifies the neighborhood and the context of the neighbors in relation to your property, and to further refine any architectural elements that we discussed, like the turret or that roof that Paul talked about, that mid-level roof.
Oak tree report was asked for or inquired by Aaron, if you think of it, that's important.
We have one already.
Okay, so to provide the oak tree report.
Appreciate the smaller, reduced size of plan.
What's that?
Appreciate the smaller plan.
Yeah, the neighbors also appreciated the reduction of the scale, so that's to be commended.
And I'd like to just...
We need a seconder.
I'll second.
All right. Comment?
And just to explore the trash enclosure
sharing aspect.
Okay. And if you're going to explore that with the two neighbors that also share that easement, because that might give you a response. So, anything else? If not, call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Let them figure it out. We are on to the last item. We're only 10 minutes behind, but that's not too bad. We are on 1233 Mission Ridge Road. This is the second time we've heard this project.
Turkey.
Thank you. Okay. Hello. If you have your name for the record, and then we'll read the project minutes from the last meeting.
Tom Sanborn, 1233 Mission Ridge Road.
Thank you.
Hi, Mark Shields with Design Arc.
Bruce Bartlett, Principal of Design Arc.
Go for it.
Okay, the minutes from the previous hearing. Number 1, study reducing the square footage as well as size, bulk, and scale. Number 2, study lowering the ridge height. Number 3, provide supporting information about impacts of the house on the neighborhood. Consider installing story poles. Provide a site section through the property. Number 4, provide an arborist report for the existing oak trees near the house. Number 5, provide additional information for landscaping along the western property line. Number 6, the performance standard permit is supportable because there is an existing guest house. Number 7, the front entry portal design is appreciated.
Great.
Proceed. Okay.
Can you slide that microphone forward a smidgen? Thanks.
Mr. Chair, if I might just make a quick announcement on this item. I'd just like to state for the record, I know you guys have seen this a few times, but...
This is our second time.
Yes, thank you. The FAR requirements on this project and the idea is that because this is 2 houses, the way they split the FAR, even the one's considerably over 100% and the other's less, we're really asking the board to look at the size, bulk, and scale of each house in the neighborhood, and the FAR numbers are more semantics of the project, so just ask you to take that in consideration.
Do you have the 20 closest homes survey from the last time, or is there a new one? Did you update the one?
We don't have a new one.
Okay. If you can just have that handy and pass that out to the board, 20 closest homes.
Okay. Just to reiterate a little bit, again, it's a large lot on the Riviera, and we're looking at a single-family home with a detached guest house, which one of the garages, 2-car garage, is associated with, as well as the workshop. There's also a 2-car garage that's incorporated in the main structure. The house in style is somewhat like Wallace Neff might have done, or Mary Craig, very Mediterranean. A lot of homes on the Riviera are following that example, and we feel it should blend into the neighborhood quite well. We heard you last time at the meeting, and we've made an attempt to address pretty much all of those issues. Architecturally, we took a look at what we could do to shift the house a little bit more northerly, away from the lower neighbors, which are the Gainies. So we actually took a little bit of square footage out of the garages and the house itself. So we reduced the square footage overall by about 176 square feet, which is equal to a nice-sized room, actually. And also, we're able to, by doing that, by taking slivers of square footage out, we were able to move the house 2 feet north on the property. These lines indicate, for those of you paying attention, these lines indicate, these new dark lines indicate the shift. The old dark lines are where the old plan used to be. The new dashed lines are where the house has now been relocated. So you can see, relative to the neighbors below, this was the old line, the dashed line is the new line. So we're able to come forward a little bit. We do have an arborist report, which was quite favorable, so we're not concerned about that. We can move on.
Do you have a copy of it just so that the landscapers can review
I
it?
think the city has a copy.
The arborist report? Does the landscape people want to review it? Good. She'll get it for you.
Okay. This set of plans actually also shows you second story movement 2 feet north as well as the lower floor movement 2 feet north. We studied, spent some time and studied what we could do to reduce the overall mass of the house besides taking out the square footage. So we drew a more technical section through the project, and actually we were able to reduce the ridge height, the main ridge, which is a transverse ridge. Where am I? This one by about 15 inches by going to a 3.5 and 12 roof pitch instead of a 4 and 12 roof pitch. So this is the new ridge line, which is a little faint in the drawing, versus the old, which is above it. So we reduced the transverse ridge line about 15 inches, as well as the gable end peak about 6 inches by going to 3.5 and 12 pitch roof. We also looked at changing the elevation on the western side of the project from a gable end to a hip. This used to be gabled, and we figured out a way where we could hip that, which is more obvious in this elevation. We essentially lost that much of the roof in terms of the overall visual profile of the house, and particularly from if you were a neighbor from above the house looking down at the house. In addition to those architectural moves, we spent quite a bit of time and energy considering the master bedroom deck. That was sort of a topic of discussion with the neighbors, the Gainies and the Sanborns, and we decided to completely eliminate. Go back to the plan for a second. That second bedroom, master bedroom deck. So we were out here in terms of looking down at the neighbors below. We decided to completely eliminate this deck for privacy issues, replace it with a trellis, wood trellis from below, which is actually a continuation of the wood trellis arbor we had over the kitchen breakfast nook. And then upstairs, instead of having the big deck, we're suggesting just a wrought iron balcony.
Do you have that in elevation?
We don't have that in elevation yet, but that's the idea. I think that goes a long way in terms of helping with the neighbor's privacy below, which is one of the big issues I think that was mentioned last time.
So I'll just back up.
Yeah.
It was this deck with this pot right here that you just
Yes.
eliminated with your pen?
Yes.
Can we see it from this view?
Yes, you can. That's the front elevation, or the south elevation. That would be this plaster element. And you can imagine that instead of it, we just have this element here. And then we're replacing it with a shallow wrought iron balcony, which essentially should help with the Gainey's privacy in terms of the Sanborns aren't really using it for any functions or walking 12 feet out. I think it's back 12 feet now if you also include the movement of 2 feet with the whole structure. So we've really, I think, made a concession in terms of the neighbor's privacy by doing that.
But we still get the definition of the loggia with the trellis. So I think that it works. It maintains the integrity of the plan.
Okay.
And I should mention, I always forget to mention this, I don't know why. It's always such a hurry, I guess. The Sanborns are also architects as well, so we've been collaborating on this project for over, a year now? More than that.
We've been working on it for 3 years. So this
3 years. And so they've been a great help in helping us through the process, and also we're like a big team. So I thought it was important that you know that these guys know what they're doing as well.
Anything else?
I lost my train of thought there a little bit. Okay. So we're still we're actually 6 inches below the height limit on the gable end, which is just that one little teeny point. We reduced the ridge height a bit. We also spoke with the fire department, Jim Austin, who sent us a letter, which I believe the city has as well, stating that he was comfortable with the fire situation and all the holes, pools, everything else. So he didn't see a need for a hammerhead or anything extraordinary on this project as well.
I'd be happy to appear if you needed it.
I'd like to point out that in addition to the movement on the upper deck, I wanted to remind everybody that we actually go back to the site plan for a second. The overall site plan. I wanted to remind everybody that we are still planning to remove the existing guest house that was on the property, as well as the existing non-conforming garage. And we think that's a fairly spectacular move in terms of the Gainey's privacy as well, primarily because of this photo. This was what you could see from the Sanborn's existing guest house, looking back at the eastern elevation of the Gainey's house below. And I can understand why they would be concerned about their privacy in this situation, since I think this was their daughter's bedroom. But we think by moving this, we've completely eliminated that issue. Now we're looking more straight down the space between the two homes. We've also spent considerable time and energy trying to document accurately by creating a scaffold initially.
Mark, why don't we go to the section? I think that it would help to have
Site section, and
this
then
new material.
we need to talk about this and then move on.
So we do have a new site section which
Can be updated photos.
Yeah.
The mic so the pages don't hit the head mic. Thanks.
Where is this? I keep going back to him. So, oh, here it is. Sorry, it's the very back. So you guys asked us to create a site section, which again helps to explain everything in terms of the site. You can see how relatively level the site is in the section, and how behind the project the hill goes up, and also below the project the property gets steeper as well. This being the Gainey's residence below, our proposed residence, the deck that we're suggesting moving, the 68-foot setback from our property line, putting the house relatively dead center in the middle of the property. We've drawn various sight lines as well. We went to a considerable effort to, again, put up scaffolding and to take photographs. These are the scaffolds we put up, and also got a boom up there, to take shots, and we did it with level and tape measurements, trying to get it super accurate, what the views would be like from the second story, because we were concerned about the Gainey's below us. And these photos show one, I'm going to get my orientation here. This one is from the proposed second bedroom upstairs, looking towards the Gainey's in the city. This view is from the proposed deck, and actually is a shot, I believe it's a shot without the deck.
That is with the deck.
With the deck. This is with the deck.
Considered pulling it back to the trellis.
And an overall view of the city and the Gainey's residence below.
From downstairs.
From down from the loggia level.
This is actually from the first floor, and these two are from the second
That's
floor?
right. This, I believe, is that right? I can't. Yeah, okay. That's from the loggia level. Loggia deck level, upper view, upper second bedroom, master bedroom, balcony.
But that's kind of mitigated now, right?
Because you're taking out the balcony?
The balcony got pulled, or this view would get pulled back like 10 feet.
By 10 feet, right. 12 feet, actually.
We can show you that representation. The reason for bringing in the bucket as opposed to the the scaffolding was, it was actually over the roof, and so the only way you could take it was, oh, I'm sorry. The only way you could get that perspective was to actually bring in the boom. And,
That's fine.
These two photos kind of show the difference much better, I think. One was taken towards the Gainey's property with the idea, and we took this initially with the scaffolding, which shows the view with the deck. So we're out 12 feet. And you can see that their pool is barely visible. The back of their house seems well protected by the existing hedge. Then the second photo, after we came up with the idea of removing the master deck and going to the shallow balcony, shows a considerable improvement, I think, in terms of the visibility, particularly of the pool area, which is really minimalized. So we felt that was a fairly significant move in terms of helping with the Gainey's privacy below.
Fabulous. Anything else?
What else do we have?
I think that is just...
That's the main point. We'd like to take the opportunity to read two letters that weren't read last time, if we may, and these were from the neighbors. If we can go back to the site
We just
plan.
say that they're in favor, and that's all we need to hear. We don't need to hear every 14.
Oh, come on. Well, we still have 4 letters in favor of the project, and 2 of the letters are from the adjacent
We didn't talk about
Sorry.
this.
Oh, very good.
Okay. The guest house
Just briefly, what changed?
really hasn't changed at all. It's one story. It's a bedroom, living area, and a kitchen. And
We're replacing the 2-bedroom, 2-bath guest house with 1 bedroom, 1 bath.
Okay.
Guest house, yeah.
Cool. Just want to make sure we covered every structure. Anything else, Bruce?
Bruce,
I
do you
just
have anything
want
to add?
I just wanted to add briefly, since we were here last, we've had a lot of sort of behind the scenes meetings with the neighbors, both on our site and on the neighboring site below, and we appreciate the fact that the neighbors have been really cooperative in terms of adding floor plans and other documents that we didn't have access to prior to our last set of drawings. So we've really had an opportunity to work with them, listen to their concerns, and understand how we can mitigate their concerns on our property without having to resort to adding landscape and other remedies on their site to create the privacy that they're looking for. So
Last item, and then we'll go to public speakers.
Right. So that was, I think, really helpful, and we think that we've heard all the concerns, and we look forward to hearing any other comments. But this goal is to really satisfy all their issues within our own property and within our control. So.
There was one comment that we needed to address from the last minutes, and that was the issue of the western property line, landscape-wise. And so I wanted to hand this to everybody. If you can see that. I can barely see it on TV, but basically we have the existing hedgerow between the 2 neighbors, the neighbor on the west. When we take out the existing non-conforming garage, we plan to fill that in with the same hedge material, which was Eugenia. The hedge is also burying about a 5-foot site wall, 5-foot site wall in the hedge. So we'd like to keep that hedge. It's a nice hedge for privacy as well as aesthetics. I want to see if I have any more photos of that. Please might look through there. We eliminated some of the paving, which is permeable, by the way. We're trying to get everything to be permeable. We eliminated some of the paving that's directly to the west where we have our garages and created this landing area for the back door, which is planted with demondia, flagstone steps. We've interspersed the idea of a little bougainvillea planter to sort of loosen up the green hedge because it is a bit monotonous, and we thought it'd be nice to intermix some bougainvillea coming over it onto both sides. We're introducing an olive tree here and there, a little hedgerow as the retaining wall steps down, possibly one cypress.
Okay. I want to get to the public comments, but I think we understand where your project is at.
Thank you.
Great. We're going to have people sit in that chair, if you don't mind. I'll call Greg Barnoff, followed by Mark Creentol. And I apologize for saying them wrong. And your name is? Greg?
My name is Greg Baranoff. And this is located up behind the property up the hill, so we sort of look down onto the proposed project. Just a couple comments. I know some of these things have been addressed, and I know there was talk of a lot of signatures being obtained in the area, but I don't think a lot of the signatures that are in support of the current design are really people directly impacted. So that's one comment. If you're further away or don't really see the property, it's not as much of an issue if you sign something in favor of it. Secondly, I'm not sure if there's actually two residences on the property right now. I think originally the second building or structure was used sort of as a ballroom. I'm not sure the exact state now if there's a kitchen in there or not. My impression is that's not the case, where this would actually result in two separate residences on the one property. And I think, just my last comment, there's this for-the-lot guideline. I'm not really sure what that means, because if you add up the square footage, it comes out to about 7,467 square feet. And that calculates to about 171% of the guideline. So I'm just wondering what these guidelines really mean, because they do, assumably they're created for some reason. You have a guideline, and they exist in the Riviera, I think, to maintain a certain look of the Riviera. And if we, choose to exceed guidelines by about 3/4, say 171% against 100%, does that set a precedent? Do we go to 200%? Where does it end? So, and I'm not sure really what the committee's role is here, or how strict these guidelines are, what the purpose of them are. But I'm just sort of wondering this out loud, because I don't know what a guideline really means. I heard a comment last time, well, things have been passed because 104%, 105%, maybe 110 if I remember correctly. So I don't know where we're going here, if this is another precedent or what, but I think it does impact the overall look of the Riviera, not as much as maybe a street view of someone just driving through. In some of these views it's more from the city, but certainly it impacts the people in the closest proximity, because you'd end up with large structures, etc. So those are really the comments I wanted to bring forth, at this time.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for following the project.
Thank you.
Next person was Mark, followed by Beverly Johnson Trail. If you can say your name, because I know I said it wrong, and I apologize.
Paul, could you have them maybe at least point out which neighbor they are, as they say? That would really be helpful.
It was Greg. Where on this aerial are you located? Right where the pen is? Are you this house?
No, it's right.
This
right,
one?
right.
That way.
Okay.
All you comes right down where the property will be, so you
Okay.
can see it now, we certainly see it.
It's a valid point.
Great, thank you.
So, Mark, are you on this aerial photograph?
Mr. Chair, I'm Mark Chutillo, and I'm here on behalf of Judy Denenholtz. I'm pinch hitting for her. She had a medical procedure and was unable to be here.
Which house does she live in?
She is at 1225.
This home right here.
And so it's just up the lane. And Ms. Denenholtz has some very grave concerns with respect to the project. Would ask that you continue the conceptual and give direction to the applicant to downsize the project. It's our concern that the mass, bulk, and scale of the proposed development is incompatible with the surrounding community, and that the second unit should be eliminated. And finally, that the project should be designed to accommodate the site rather than being a house plunked onto the site. As we've seen out on the Gaviota Coast, a number of projects that I've worked on, it's important to respect the topography. And while there was a reference to the site being fairly flat, it's actually at the top of a knoll, and it does drop down on to the south. And I think that the desired uses of the house could be achieved with a project that's more in tune with the topography and thereby reduce the significant impacts to the surrounding areas. The rationale for our request for these downsiding, the FAR is well in excess of the 85% goal. The concern is it is not, in our view, consistent with the scenic character of the neighborhood, nor does it enhance the neighborhood. And it's not appropriate to the site. I think if you look at the site plan, if we could turn it to the that one there. Thanks. You can see the size of the footprint is very substantial in comparison to the lot, and if you look at the surrounding homes, they don't have that kind of a large footprint. That impact is exacerbated by the garage the two garages, which really don't make much sense in our view, as well as the entry structure, which is a large, foreboding, very heavy structure that will be quite apparent in the neighborhood as you view down the lane. And I think we're concerned that those sorts of big, bulky things, the massing of the wall on that west side is sufficient, is such that it really doesn't fit with the neighborhood. There's a number of other issues that we have concerns about. One, it concerns the lot size, which affects the FAR. And I'll hand you, Mr. Chair, a couple of documents. One's an independent assessment of the parcel size, and the other is the city's, which shows that the lot size is actually about 28,000 square feet, not 31, and that, of course, would affect the FAR calculation. So it would be our view that a survey would be appropriate in order to identify what's the appropriate lot size, and then those calculations. Secondly, the emergency access is a critical issue. Greenfield is a narrow lane. Access by emergency vehicles, this being a high fire hazard area, is one that it has all of the neighbors concerned. And I haven't had a chance to discuss this with the fire department, but there have been instances in the past where emergency vehicles have been blocked. An ambulance has blocked the roadway, and consequently, it's not been able. It's created an issue, and so that does need to be addressed. There needs to be a better assessment of the public views, the calculation of the amount of paving. We would like to see story poles actually installed so that they could be viewed by the community. I know folks, I got calls about the scaffolding, but they were gone by the time anybody was able to really get a sense of that. And I think that the community desires a good story poling that'll be up, that'll reference the ridge line, not the plate heights, so that we can know really what's going to be there. And lastly, in terms of the informational, the calculations that we have show that the size of the building is larger than what is depicted in the case report. Just the main house calculates out to 7,344 feet rather than 6,079. So we have some questions, and I think that leads to that issue about the size it being too large.
Can you wrap it up, please?
Yes, thank you for your patience. I've talked about the entrance. It gives a statement that is highly problematic from the community. The second garage is disconnected from the second house, which shouldn't be there anyway. Visibility remains an issue. We have a question about the code status of the existing guest house, as the previous speaker mentioned. And finally, the importance of fire-safe construction practices and recognition of this being a high fire hazard area. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for hearing our views.
Beverly Johnson, followed by Alvin Trail. And I just like to people to be brief, just because I want to give you your time, but be brief. Take your 2 minutes, but just to understand that we're all haven't had dinner yet. So
sure, a brief 2 minutes.
And where was your house in relationship to this aerial photograph? When I get to that shade.
Next to Mrs. Bond. Fair enough. Right here.
Okay, right next door to Greg.
That's right.
So we also look down. Yes.
There we go.
So her house would also be shown on that section.
I want to make this fast because I want to go to dinner.
Yes. About the story poles, I have a visual and a learning disability whereby I cannot see objects in 3D when they're on a piece of paper or photograph. I need to actually see story poles so that I don't have to imagine what it looks like. About the zoning information report that was done in August of 3 years ago, one of the comments that I thought was quite interesting was that zoning ordinance and building code violations said this property is located in a single-family zone and may only have one food preparation area. So, and some of the photographs that I noticed, I mean, this was beautifully done. Some of the photographs that were entered as evidence seem to suggest that this project is going to be partially or totally obscured by some existing hedges and beautiful mature trees. But this is a fallacy, as mature trees in the Riviera and elsewhere in Santa Barbara have been uprooted due to flooding, high winds, fire, disease, and whims of homeowners. And a case in point is 1435 Mission Ridge, which is about 2 blocks in a different direction. It used to be, it used to look like a little forest, and now you can see the home very easily. Oh yes, you can see the home very easily from 2 different views of it. So the existing owner has a beautiful view of the street, go figure, and we have an unrestricted view of their house. As far as the neighbors, some of the neighbors signing that they were satisfied with the design, it wasn't signatures in support of the project. The neighbors viewing the plans were not aware of the project scope, size, bulk, height, and the 2 single-family dwelling units on one parcel were not discussed. The input from the neighbors was not requested because the plans were already done. And I
The time is about ready to go up. Sorry.
Okay.
Wrap it up, please.
Okay. I am also particularly interested in making sure that the view of the neighbor directly to the north between the Sanborns and us. It's
You're here, so this person?
Yes. They are frail, 90-year. They're in their 90s, and they are quite alarmed at the prospect of losing almost all their view.
Okay.
And thank you.
Thank you very much. The next person will be Alvin, followed by Dan Gainey. And I don't mean to rush you to have you not say something that's important, but we want to just move fast or move productively.
I'll do an abbreviated version, and I will hand you
Okay.
full text of my comments.
Do you live in the same house as the previous speaker?
Yes, I do.
Okay, perfect.
My name is Alan Trial. I live at 1218 High Ridge Lane, to the north of the applicant's parcel. At the previous meeting of the Single Family Design Board, many board members seem to be considering the 1233 Mission Ridge project solely on its architectural merits. That attitude is contrary to both the letter and the spirit of the City of Santa Barbara Single Family Residence Design Guidelines, which, I quote, provide a framework for the design review process and a foundation for public, city staff, SFDB, HLC, Planning Commission, and City Council project evaluation. And the SFR guidelines make it clear that project size and architectural design are equally important. The City of Santa Barbara's primary goal, according to the general plan, is the provision of a particularly desirable living environment. And topping the SFR guidelines list of ways to design homes to achieve this goal is compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. And the SFR guideline lists 5 qualities that contribute to neighborhood compatibility, and I'll just list the 2 related to the size of the development. An appropriate volume, bulk, scale, massing, and scale, and a size that is not significantly larger than the immediate neighborhood. And the SFR guidelines provide the additional guidance in the form of the lot area ratio, and I quote, strive for a project which falls in the less than 85% of maximum FAR range for the project lot size. And the SFR guidelines go on to say that projects between 85% and 100% of the maximum FAR, I quote, are more likely to pose neighborhood compatibility issues and are generally discouraged. and that projects over 100% maximum FAR are strongly discouraged. And, the applicants are proposing, 171% maximum FAR total and, 140% just for the one house. And that is considerably larger than, the properties around them. I think my 2 minutes are up, and so I will...
Thank you for your thoughts.
Leave it there, and here's a copy.
Okay.
Thanks, Al.
Next will be Dan Gainey, followed by Keith Rivera.
Evening.
So you live the house right below?
Yeah,
Okay.
just to the south and adjacent to it. My name is Dan Gainey, and my wife Diane, and our 3 children live in the house we just described. I'm joined today by architect Keith Rivera and landscape architect Katie O'Reilly Rogers, who are representing my family in this matter. In regard to the comments that the applicant made earlier about the potential changes to the plan to address our privacy concerns, I'd just like to say that we appreciate those comments very much. And this evening, however, since we have not seen these changes, nor the effects that they'll have on our property, I have to speak to what we have seen.
Okay.
I appeared before the board last month to express my concerns about the proposed project due to the negative impacts it would have on our property. I'm here today to voice my opposition to it for the same reason. Since the meeting in July, Katie, Keith, and I have met with the applicants to discuss the project. At that time, we were unable to come up with any understanding about ways to deal with the diminishment of our privacy. For that meeting, the applicants erected a story pole to show where the master bedroom deck would be situated on the proposed second floor. I'd like to share some photographs of that area with you. This first one is one that you have seen. It's actually one of theirs. I'd like to draw your attention to our second-story windows in that photo. As you can see, the tops of the existing olive trees on our property have now grown to a height that, if allowed to fill in at that height, would screen the applicant's views into our bedroom and bathroom areas on our second floor. Secondly, the photo shows a partial view into our patio and pool areas. This is the second photograph. I'd like to
It's
maybe
okay.
take a look at.
No, you keep going.
I'll go fast.
No, you're the back fence neighbor. This is...
Okay, so the second photo was taken from our patio area, looking back at the story pole and the proposed master bedroom suite on that second floor.
Okay.
The third and last photo was taken from our pool area, looking back again at the story pole and the proposed second floor. So, as you know, our home is a family home. We and our 3 kids and their friends spend a great deal of time in this outdoor area. It is, in effect, our living room. And this living space and its privacy would be greatly diminished by the proposed second story. So we respectfully ask the board to protect the privacy we currently enjoy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming. Keith Rivera, followed by Katie O'Reilly Rogers. Set that timer for 1 minute and 59 seconds. 2 minutes.
Chair Keith Rivera, as Dan mentioned, I was brought in to kind of help facilitate discussions between them and the Sanborn's team to try to mitigate any potential privacy issues. And as Bruce said, there's been a real positive, exchange of information and discussions. And Sanborn's were nice enough to put up the story pole that Dan just showed you. And so it was evident from that, as Dan said, there were some privacy issues. And we're really positive to see this, potential for eliminating the deck and, potentially mitigating what issues there were. I think what we would request from the board is to direct the applicants to do some sort of additional story pole or mock-up of what's proposed with eliminating the deck, so it can just be vetted by both parties that it's something that's going to ensure the privacy and something that the Sanborns are also going to be happy with. And we'll just continue the kind of discussions that the 2 parties have had, and we know we can resolve it. But we would think that kind of mock-up would be a way to really get there. So
Thank you. Katie O'Reilly Rogers.
Who has never been brief in her life? As Dan said, I'm a landscape architect. I was brought in to look at his privacy issues, and while we could partially mitigate this application's privacy into the Gainey property with landscape on the Gainey property, we don't think it's a neighbor's responsibility to mitigate against a project. But that being said, you've seen the views that Dan gave you of the issue into his pool area where the children, teenage girls in bikinis, tend to spend a lot of time and would like their privacy. But could we go to the site plan? Because one thing I noticed as I was looking at it, I am a landscape architect on El Encanto and have been working in this neighborhood for some 10 or 12 years on that project, that long, drawn-out project. And as I looked at the site plan, I thought, yeah, that one's good. No, yeah, that's good. It's remarkable how much the entry motor court looks just like the El Encanto entry motor court at about the same diameter. And this house is actually not out of Mass Vulcan scale with the neighborhood because it's slightly larger, only slightly larger than the main building at El Encanto. And the little guest house next to it looks just like cottage number 2, for those of you who are familiar with the relationship between the entry portico to the main building, the open space to the great lawn, and then cottage 2. So if this was a small hotel project, which is exactly what it looks like to me, it would be in complete keeping with the El Encanto character of this neighborhood. However, I believe this is a small single-family home neighborhood, and privacy issues aside, it's beautiful architecture, way too big in the wrong spot on the site. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, are there any other public speakers? Seeing none, I will go to staff. And are there any letters?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do have one letter of opposition from Ms. Paula Westbury.
Okay. So we turn it back to the board for questions of the applicant. I actually have two. First of all, can we have the minutes from the previous meeting? The phrase was provide supporting information about the impacts of the house on the neighborhood. Consider installing story poles. The house that's back here, how did you evaluate? I'm sorry, I'm pointing to off the map. How did you evaluate its impact to the other neighbors? You did a lot of understanding. I guess you know that aerial. You spent a lot of time figuring out how it's going to affect the downslope neighbor, which is right over here. But how were these, in particular, how was this person's house going to be affected by your work, and how did you study that, and how did you evaluate its impacts?
That one, I can speak up to that. That was part of our movement to reduce the ridge line and to actually open up this corner of the property for their view down towards the ocean in the west. We're stuck on this side because we've got the oak trees as well. So that was one attempt to mitigate some of their issues, if there are any, although I don't think they've expressed that.
Okay.
The section goes a long ways to talk about how high these guys are relative to potential building right there.
Did you want to tag on anything or no?
Well, I think the section is what really shows it. They have a greater down-angle view toward the harbor, even with this house in place, than what our applicant will have looking over the Gainies. They're so much higher and so far away.
Yeah, if you were to
I
draw
think you could draw a straight line from their house. They would probably go all the way down to the Gainies.
Okay, thank you. Questions from other people?
There's always many sides to some of these stories, and so I was just wanting to know what your information was regarding, is there a legal guest house? Does it have a kitchen? Are you able to replace that with a second house? And then another controversial one was about the actual lot size.
Very good. We did have the property surveyed. It's 31,584, I believe.
Have you submitted any documentation to the city?
We have.
Is it in the file? Do you have a surveyed site plan? Okay, thanks.
I have a letter from the surveyor.
Okay.
I'm sorry, let's see.
The other one had to do with the kitchen, the legal kitchen versus not legal kitchen.
The guest house is a permitted non-conforming use. It was permitted as a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, which is what it is. The zoning information report prior to our purchase of it found that there was a laundry sink that was not permitted. That was removed. But it is a legal, permitted guest house. The reason why it is a non-conforming is it was built 5 feet from property line.
Okay. Other questions?
Mr. Chair?
I'll go with Aaron and then followed by Glenn.
So what is the dimension of the second-story deck? Is that proposed? I heard you guys say you're taking it away.
We were going to eliminate it, and it was approximately 10 by 15.
So even
like
though we
that.
see it on the drawings,
We've decided to take it off, and we just didn't. That was per our discussions with the neighbors after we submitted the plans. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else, Aaron?
More technical than anything, have you had a chance to recalculate the FARs with the reduction of square footages?
No.
I can speak to that.
Bruce can, yeah.
There were some errors, I think, in the way the numbers were assembled in the project description, because the workshop is actually attached to the garage number 2, which goes with residence 2. If you assign the appropriate square footages to each residence, the main residence actually ends up with a grand total, including garages, I believe, of 5735, which is an FAR of 0.28. And if you, since this lot is large enough to technically do a lot split, if you take the portion of the lot that could be a separate lot for the main house, it ends up at 123% of the max FAR. And then if you take residence number 2, which is allowed per the performance standard permit, with the garage and workshop, it's a total of 1,732 square feet, an FAR of 0.11, and it's 41% of the max FAR. If you put the two together by doing a lot split, the total combined for both is only 83% of the allowed. If we split this into 2 lots and just do 2 houses like most normal applicants would probably do, rather than doing a family compound, we'd be at 83% of what we could do if we just split it into 2 lots.
Do you have a lot split? Or, I mean, you don't have an approval.
No,
permit.
we're doing performance.
Do you have that permit yet?
Well, we have to get your comments to go get the performance. We'd rather not do that. That's why we're here, to try and get positive comments to do the family compound and do 2 houses rather than 2 equal size houses, which would be way more than what we're proposing.
You have another question? I want to jump in with one question, I'm sorry. The previous design, did you have a lot more covered roofs on the second floor, and did you deduct those, or is that just
The only
my
thing
memory?
we've deducted is because we're reducing or losing the master bedroom deck, it also lost the square footage that we created underneath it for the dining area off the kitchen. So it's a size reduction in terms of mass bulk and scale as well, I think, as well as a privacy improvement.
Okay. Questions?
Yeah, I'd like to look at the second floor outline on the site
Hit that mic button. Thanks. On the site plan, you said...
So basically, we're talking about a second floor here.
No.
How far does that extend out?
This element in the center is a single-story element. That's the living room, and so it's flanked by a 2-story element on both sides, a bedroom here and a bedroom here.
Okay.
So that helps.
Yeah, okay.
Denise?
Yes, first of all, I want to thank you for making the changes that you did. I think you did a good job eliminating that deck upstairs. That I think should make a big difference to the downhill
We're asking
neighbor.
questions right now.
Yes, I'm about to do that.
Good.
But I first wanted to compliment them for what they've done so far. I have a question. Well, I know you've already designed this out, but it seems as though the issue is sort of the proximity to the property line to your downhill neighbor. Is there any way you can consider pushing this whole house back further? We've got a big lot here.
You run into a certain geometry that becomes inflexible. The entry sequence to the motor court. It doesn't do any good to design a motor court that you can't turn around. There is a functional width there. I've always thought that 52, 54 feet is just about it. Otherwise you're back and filling around it. And kind of everything else follows sequentially. We felt that putting the mass of the house into the center of the lot where it is was the right balance. If you put it up here, somebody's going to say, God, why are you putting it so close to me? And so we tried to balance it out.
Okay. Thank you.
It's a compromise, too, I think, between the further we move back, it also doesn't help his views. The further back we go, it's harder. Yeah, so it's a catch-22. That's why we always felt that the oak trees prevented us from moving further east. Let's put it right in the middle of the lot. Seems the furthest away from all the setbacks. We're 68 feet from our front yard neighbor's setback, which is pretty significant, I think.
And the impactful portion of the project, which was the second-story deck, we're actually pulling back and making a narrow balcony. It's 12 feet further back from being in the middle of the lot, which is what you're looking at now. So that's the old plan.
Any other questions, Denise?
No.
Mr. Miller, do you have any comments or questions? And then we'll go to comments.
I have no questions at this time.
All right. So we're to comments.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
You may.
I just wanted to let you know I did find a slope or a survey in the file. It was done by Macomber Surveying, and it was submitted back in June, and it does clarify that the lot area is 31,854 square feet.
Good. So if any public member wants to review that, they can ask you or ask staff for a copy of that.
Yes.
Archie Macomber. Okay. Comments from the board.
Mr. Chair, I do have some comments.
Mr. Miller, you can be first.
First off, I think it's a beautiful floor plan. I think the execution is excellent. Unfortunately, we've got this situation, and I'm looking at your floor plans. I would like to suggest that you explore reducing sizes of rooms, explore the possibility of making it a 4-car garage or a 3-car garage, eliminating. I'm just saying this, throwing this out there, somehow to reduce the size of the house. The office seems rather large, maybe reduce the size of the office. The laundry rooms maybe can be reduced. I mean, there's a lot of little rooms that maybe can be combined and condensed and simplified so that you can have less square footage and reduce the impact of the house on the property. That's just my suggestion. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody in any order?
Mr. Chair, I'll follow up. Repeating a lot of comments. The architecture is really good. I just think it's too big for the neighborhood. So I would, and our comments before were to reduce the square footage, and 176 square feet came out, and that wasn't significant. So I mean, I would say significantly reduce the square footage. That'd be my comment.
I'll just follow in the row with a capital S for significant. I didn't write the rules and whether it's 141% or 123% of the FAR. The house is way, way too large. A game of calling this garage and this warehouse part of this detached structure isn't acceptable. When we look at what the impact of this roofed building is, it is something, and that's what we have to evaluate. And because your lot is of a certain size, you can have a bonus, which is this other structure. It's separated with landscaping breaking it up. So that's how we should look at it. So to say that it's really actually 123% and not 140, I don't buy the math. And if it's a subjective call, my subjective call is that the house is way too large. It's very well designed, it's beautiful, and all the other kinds of things. The concern I have, and it's coming from me as a board member as well as the chairman and what I'm supposed to do, if I go to the aerial photograph, when I came down here and I viewed the site, I always thought about what this person's going to think about. And this last time I went up there, I rang his doorbell, and I turned around and I took a picture of what his house is. We as a board do not protect private views, and I am not going to protect a private view. But we do have to acknowledge that a private view is going to be altered by your work. And our board has to evaluate what work you're doing and say, you know what, it's an appropriate improvement for you, and you know what, c'est la vie. Because that happens sometimes. But what the board also has a responsibility, and it comes from our guideline, where someone else drew these drawings, I didn't draw these drawings, and they say we don't like it when a house is right in the middle of someone's view. Try to push it off to the side. Here's another one, which is, it's lower. They do what you can in site planning to place your structure so it's not 100% total obliteration of the view when you have an opportunity. And this is under good neighbor tips, and I think we need to evaluate that. There's little drawings in here that talk about how the placement of the house is. So when I stood at their front door and I saw what the view would be, and I was imagining what a two-story structure was, because the two-story is also going to be over where this garage is, even though there's a slight clip, I sense it as it's too aggressive. And the size being at 140%, I could not stand in front of the city council with us giving you preliminary approval with the project being appealed and support your project. I can't support it, and really I have to look at what can I do in front of the city council and say that I approve this project, I think it's appropriate for our community, and I can't. I feel that it's too aggressive. This is from their second view. We shouldn't be as concerned, but when we do a silhouette of what the second story of what you're projecting, to me I say it's too aggressive, and what makes it too aggressive was the FAR charts that someone else put together. Your house really belongs on a 3-acre lot, and I didn't come up with these numbers. You need to come up with another way of designing the house so it has less of an impact to the neighborhood. That's my comment. You're next.
Well, I think it's a beautiful design. It's a beautiful layout. If you could lower the FAR, get it down to a reasonable, reasonable size on the property. Maybe some of the rooms could be reduced in size, but it'd work well on a bigger piece of property, possibly. But the FAR is really, if you could lower it some.
Feelings.
We need to go through our comments. Sorry about that.
Mr. Chair. Well, I think that you definitely have a really workable project here. I mean, it's again, I want to say what everyone else has said. It's a beautifully detailed plan. Too big. Rein it in just a little bit here. Just rein it in a little bit, and you have a beautiful home. It's gorgeous. I also have a comment for the uphill people that along that northern property line, great opportunity to plant some nice trees there to mitigate their view, looking down on you. If you've got some nice tall trees there, maybe someone else will be upset about blocking their view probably, but with the trees, but the right tree in the right place can really do a lot to mitigate their having to look right down on your roof.
Thanks.
I actually didn't have a whole lot of concern mass, bulk, and scale until I saw the photo that you showed, Paul, Mr. Chair. I was going to be more focused on the south side. I'll comment on that side first. I see this grove of olive trees on the Gainey property. Maybe we should consider bringing that on our side of the property, some lower trees to sort of mask off this valley between the garage and their house. The view from the uphill side
is sort of it's significant. So I think maybe we want to bring in some one-story elements where that view is, where they have that direct harbor view. I know we don't protect private views, but good neighbor guidelines are nice to adhere to.
On the west side, you're speaking of.
As far as the trees?
The one-story element, the view corridor you're describing in.
From the uphill side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you, everybody, for coming. I agree with mostly everything that's been said. I think it's gorgeous, and I think it's way too big, so if you could bring it down. I also want us as a board to give a little direction. There was some criticism of the entry gate. I personally really like it, and I don't know how the rest of the archway, how the rest of the board feels about that.
If I could just tag on real fast, Bernie, that at the last meeting we said the front entry portal design is appreciated. And if anybody has any new comment to add to that, personally I think it's very fun and very whimsical when it's a one-story element, and it's, you know, I don't have an issue with that part of the project. If anyone else wants to tag. Do you want to see anything else? Okay. So with that, we need to give you some guidance and some suggestions. Does someone want to craft a motion? Okay.
The applicants return to the full board in 2 to 4 weeks at their discretion, and with significant reductions in the FAR.
Does someone want to second that motion?
I second that motion.
Is there any other discussion? And then do you want to add anything else? Because I would say that there is an option for you, and that is to you basically request a denial and go to the city council because your design is so stellar it belongs here, and you can take the discussion to their review board body as well. I mean, I have to tell you that that is an option for you. But at this point, the motion was to significantly reduce the square footage of the house, and it was seconded.
We have some studying to do.
All right, and it's really an indefinite continuance. You don't have to put yourself on in 2 to 4 weeks. It's take the time necessary, evaluate what you want to do, and come back with a design that the board can support you, because the best thing is when the board can say, we bless this project and we think it's appropriate, and the neighbor still took it to the city council on appeal. Not that they always do, but from that perspective, you can understand how we have to look at it.
Sure.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. One abstain. Aaron is abstaining. Brian seconded.
Yeah, thank you.
And I forgot to close the meeting, so I'll close the meeting.